You still got a minute.
I brought it.
Since they're on Zoom.
They're on Zoom.
I thought we probably should. Yeah. I didn't talk to you about that earlier,
You're way up high.
because I knew we were gonna be here, so.
The designer ones will be lower and they're not.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right, it's 6 o'clock, so I will have our city administrator, Greg Elliott, give his infamous Zoom speech.
I like to consider it my famous Zoom. Good evening, everyone. I'm City Administrator Greg Elliott. I'd like to address a few ththings before the mayor requests a roll call. This is a pre-meeting, which is formed for the city commission to discuss various issues and topics. For much of the meeting, we ask that participants mute themselves to allow commissioners to have their discussions and to minimize any background noise that may be disruptive. An opportunity for public comment will be provided at the end of the meeting, and participants will be invited to unmute themselves at that time and address the commission if they wish. We've talked in the past about Zoom bombing. This is where virtual meeting is interrupted by people who fill the screen with objectionable content. If this occurs during our meeting tonight, we will disconnect the Zoom portion of the meeting and restart after a few minutes. Attendees can reconnect via the same link. We will also turn over the video of the meeting to law enforcement for investigation. Thank you all for participating, and Mayor, I'll turn the meeting over to you for a roll call.
Robin, roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Present.
Commissioner House,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Watson,
Present.
Commissioner Strayer,
Present.
Commissioner Gauss,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Present.
all commission members present.
I will hand it back over to you, Greg.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item we have for discussion tonight is our continuing discussion of food trucks, or as we're calling them in our draft ordinance, mobile food vending. My purpose in putting it on the pre-meeting was to answer any remaining questions about the ordinance, which is on for introduction tonight. And then also to try to move the discussion forward related to where on public property we will be comfortable initially allowing food trucks to park. So as a reminder, there's two components to sort of making the city food truck friendly, if you will. The component that the ordinance that's on your agenda tonight deals with is public property. So it allows for the parking of food trucks and other forms of mobile food vending on public property where the commission determines by resolution that would be appropriate. For example, we've talked about public parks where we have parking lots, and we've talked about potentially trying it out downtown at the farmers market parking lot. So those locations would be, you would be authorized by the ordinance to establish those locations by resolution. They're not a part of the ordinance itself, so adopting the ordinance doesn't allow for them in any particular location. It just sets up a application procedure and contemplates both the fee structure and the map of locations being established by resolution, which we hope to have for you then to take action on if the ordinance advances to second reading. With that said, I would like to suggest for consideration those parks that we have parking lots in. So that would be Heritage Park, although Heritage Park is not in the city limits, and so the ordinance doesn't necessarily deal with that. We'll have to deal with Raisin Township as it relates to that. Island Park, Trestle Park, Riverside Park, and you may want to consider Burr Ponds Park. There's a parking lot there as well. There's a small parking lot at Benham Crossing, but I think it's so small that even though it might be an opportunity for someone with the trailhead there, you may or may not want to have any of that parking taken up by a truck. As I mentioned in the sort of preamble there, that it makes sense to me. We've got a lot of interest downtown. It makes sense to me to try that out in the farmers market parking lot. Eventually also maybe Church Street, but that's the point of the discussion tonight, is to get the commission's feelings on that so that we can have a resolution prepared and a map prepared next time that would allow that to happen. As it relates to private property, there is also a resolution on your agenda tonight to initiate an amendment to the zoning ordinance to allow food trucks to be parked by right in non-residential zoning districts where there would be adequate parking. In other words, it's not taking up required off-street parking. Currently, the procedure for that is, there is a procedure for that, but it's very cumbersome. No one wants to avail themselves of it. It requires going before the zoning board of appeals and getting a temporary use permit. And the timing of that is such with the public hearing that's required before the zoning board of appeals that no one ever wants to take advantage of that. So I think to be friendly toward mobile food vending, we want to loosen that up. Hope you'll pass the resolution to initiate that text amendment to the zoning ordinance as well tonight. That'll be a little longer process because it has to go to the planning commission. They'll hold a public hearing and make a recommendation on that. So open it up for the commission's discussion.
Greg, can you explain the private property one more time? That seemed pretty technical there for a second.
Right now, so private property in the city is regulated by, the use of it is regulated by our zoning ordinance. And as such, what we say right now is that if you want to engage in temporary use, which can mean many things, for example, fireworks sales are temporary use. That's what we see more than anything else as a temporary use. You have to apply to go before the zoning board of appeals. We conduct a public hearing and they can authorize that for a year initially, and then subsequent to that for a longer period of time. It's really meant to be a one-time sort of thing, though. Like, you know, like I say, fireworks, Christmas trees, those sort of things. It really isn't meant for repetitive activity like a food truck. And where we've had inquiries about private property before, having a food truck in so-and-so's parking lot, we've described that process for them. No one has ever taken us up on that process. It's just too cumbersome for that.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, I'll pop it off. I have limited reservation on in the dispensaries are ones that I've seen them in before we talked about them. That private property use, that one's a non-issue for me. I think that's fine. I think that's somebody's opportunity to do something along those lines. I agree with the parks with the adequate parking. Benno Crossing's bad. That thing's full on a weekend, no matter what. Now, I'm assuming that also with that, I can't just, or a food truck just can't pull up into an island park on a Saturday and open up shop. There's a permitting process associated with that we're discussing.
Correct, and that is described in the ordinance.
Right, and then so also I do think I with a and it's personal to me as involved with the Boys and Girls Club. This came to me from our committee, is that if somebody rents a farm market or another facility where there's adequate space for a food truck, I think that makes sense to allow that activity as well as a caterer or something along those lines. That especially in say a Church Street or a farm market, if you're having a private event in those facilities, that's not detracting from any kind of restaurant activity. People are coming there for that event to engage in the event in its entirety.
That's I should have mentioned special events, and that's another topic for you to discuss. Historically, they have been part of special events. Many times those, however, take place on Main Street or Maumee Street, First Fridays, our lunches, those kind of things. And they have been there in the past, sometimes right on the street. And I think it's worth discussing, whether or not, like you say, they should be allowable at special events that are given X level of approval by the city, and if so, can that include the main, parking on the street, which otherwise we wouldn't be suggesting.
So I have a question, going back here a little bit, talking about the private property. So say somebody wants to set up a food truck every day at one of the factories or something like the Human Services building. Okay. Are we saying that we're going to change that cumbersome proposal that we have now?
Yes, but
Practice, I
on
should say.
private property like that would be permit, it would be, again, there would be a process, but, you know, an
Right.
application process, but it would be a by right use. You just do it, you don't have to go before the planning commission and zoning board of appeals.
Okay.
Is it every time they do that? So if they have a plan to be there every Friday for the summer, is it every time or is it?
I would think we'd want to provide for an annual permit. I think we'd provide for two kinds of permits. You could acquire an annual permit or you could require a one-time permit.
And that would entail different fees then, I
Right.
assume.
And likewise, between private and public property, typically what you see is a higher fee for public property because, you know, you're using property that is not taxed, not subject to the property tax to make money. So it justifies charging a higher fee most places. Conclude.
I did have a question when reading the proposed ordinance, section B under the 604, the city-owned property. It has to go through a resolution of the city commission. Is that, I mean, I worry that the timing of that could be cumbersome also.
That isn't meant to say each time. It means that you will set, like I say, the map by resolution of where you can get a permit. And that can be changed from time to time. So you pass a resolution saying food trucks are allowed in Island Park, you know, Trestle Park, Riverside Park, and at the farmer's market. And if you want to change it in the future, then you just have to pass another resolution.
So if we pass it tonight, or whenever we pass it, that food trucks can be allowed at Riverside Park, then they would just come in to Robin and fill out the form and pay the fee and go with it. They're not having to come to us individually every time. All right.
Yeah, I bet, yeah. It's kind of like street closures back years ago, remember, like, that we'd have to vote every time a street closure
Right.
happened. We changed that process, so they can do it administratively, we don't have to be
Yeah.
involved in
Yeah.
that, so.
Okay,
yeah.
it's not how I read it, so.
Yep.
Another one was section O, within 100 feet of a restaurant on the public property.
Not allowed.
Yeah, I'm sorry, not allowed within 100 feet.
So that would not be an issue for the farmer's market. I don't think. You got
They're pretty
Brenda's,
close.
Sean,
shop, I think is going to be.
There's a Hispanic restaurant right across the street from Puerto Rican.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's
Brenda's
Brenda's.
is Tex-Mex now. I mean, that number, we could look at that number. I mean, we looked at it as frankly, as it related to the downtown restaurants, but we might want to check it as it relates to Brenda's.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, it may, well, the ideal place would be probably the pavilion, so we want to make sure that's available.
How many feet is a parking space?
10 by 20 roughly.
I like the idea of the Church Street parking lot as a location. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but you do have Dempsey's in the front of that building. I don't know.
Yeah, it looked like we were measuring it out on GIS that the perimeter, you know, not the closest up spaces. And again, you don't want to use the closest up spaces. You want to use the
Right.
farthest away
Right.
spaces. Would be far enough away. But we can look at that exact number to make sure that in fact works. Maybe it's 50 feet instead of 100.
So for the public areas, what we're looking to do is establish all these specific areas. And they can come and get their application, pay their fee with Robin, and then they're good to go. That application and fee process, I didn't see, like, can they do it that day? Does it have to be done a couple of days, a week ahead of time? I didn't notice, like, what's the lead time? Can they come in at 4:58 and say, I want to have a food truck tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like with anything, it just depends. I mean, like your building permit, you might be able to get it, but
Okay.
you know, someone there to process it.
So that does happen where you could come in an afternoon and get your
Sure.
permits, and that's not a problem for the city staff on a normal basis, unless there's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
stuff going on.
if there's someone there, we can process it. If not, we,
Okay.
you know,
All right.
take it.
Because I do want food trucks, but I don't want it to be cumbersome on either side for the city or for the food truck owners. How do we establish a fee? How does that work?
Well, I'll bring a proposed schedule again, along with the map that you will set by resolution, but you just set it by resolution.
Now, what about the places that we determine are public places where it's gonna be okay to set up a food truck? I think that those people need to make some serious commitments to the city of Adrian, and the city, serious commitments being they're gonna be there a certain number of times per quarter, per year, whatever, and they're going to pay a certain fee that would maybe not equate to, but the whole idea is that if you have a brick and mortar business, you're paying property taxes, so they're just not getting this free space. So we would need to figure out what that fee is going to be.
And then what you're saying is like maybe buy a certain amount of permits
Yeah,
up front.
yeah, you need to, I don't know, you have to buy 10 permits or whatever, I don't know, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I was vocal in the last meeting, but it was more so just, you know, and obviously things are lifting up, you know, when it comes to the virus and all that, and so, I have had a food truck in my north location, and she was there for a month or so, you know, twice a week. But, you know, my thing, what I still want to plop in front of an establishment right now, and I even think 100 feet's too much. I mean, that's how many yards is that? What is 100 feet?
33.
Yeah, that's a long way.
And I just measured on Google Maps from the corner of Farmers Market to Brenda's, it's 99 feet.
Of course it is.
Set it for 98 feet.
I like the
Thanks,
idea
Greg.
of more than one permit. You have to get the year's worth or whatever. And then they can use them whenever they want them. I mean, you're not- obviously not going to use them probably in December or January.
Right,
You never
because
know.
now they've established they have skin in the game, so. to speak.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But will it deter anyone from coming? I
You
don't
know?
want to deter them from coming here.
You know, if you're only interested in swinging in and trying to make a fast buck off of what's going on in town, maybe we want to deter them. I mean,
Or
It
delicious,
also seems
roll
like,
in, roll out.
but it seems like a lot of these food trucks, they go to the same place, like they like to have a regular schedule so they can tell everybody, hey, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be here this week, because I follow several that will post that, and they will say, this is where we're gonna be, and they kind of keep the same schedule, sometimes they change it up and they alert you, but at least they have somewhat of a regular schedule, so like their regulars will find them, like I do. I purposely will drive to Blissfield to find Maria Sunnyside sometimes, because I know where she's gonna be, because I'm really craving Sunnyside, so, I mean, there's, you know, I'm one of those that does follow them, and I just think when they have that regular schedule, they have their regular following that will come, so that's why I agree with you, that I don't think it would really deter, I think they want to have a regular schedule and let everybody know where they're going to be on certain days.
So when we say 5, 10, whatever a minimum is, how do you enforce something like that? Is it, hey, we bought 5 and it's May 17th, 24th, 31st, and so on, that we're gonna be set up? Is it some kind of, say, coupon book or sticker? I mean, what are we thinking there? Because when you just said a minimum of 5, I think that or 10 or whatever the number is, regardless, if it's 2, who knows? But you know, how do we, in essence, expire one of those permits so there's 2 times?
Well, it might be like, I mean, I have a permit up at Kensington Park.
Mhm.
And it expires in December. Now, I can come there as many times as I want. Okay, so
Yeah.
maybe they can set up as many times as they want, but they're still going to pay a fee that would be, and again, I don't want to say equal to somebody's property taxes who has an actual restaurant,
Mhm.
but something that makes them make a commitment.
Sure, okay.
I don't agree. I don't, because I think food trucks are more transient than that. And I don't know.
Well, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, if you have a restaurant, it's
I
not really
see
very
that.
fair to you. I mean, if you pull up on the Church Street parking lot and start selling hot dogs, that could affect Dempsey, who sells subs.
Or one of the vendors that attacked me on Facebook talked about bringing a donut truck to park in a Vance Auto parking lot, 'cause that's in the township. He made my argument, hey, I'm gonna bring a donut truck to park it right next to the Morning Fresh, and pull it, whatever, do what you wanna do, but you made my point. Is that you wanna drive from brick and mortar, so you should have skin in the game a little bit, you know, and I like food trucks. I ate them one Friday down in Toledo at a brewery, and so, but I think we have to be fair here too, to our restaurants, you know, and I like the footage, you know, how many feet you're away from it, but, I don't know.
Could we have individual permits for individual visits, but have a higher priced annual permit? You just, you know, you do something, a fee that would be equal to your property taxes, and they can come and go as they want all year long. I don't know if that makes any
I
sense
think
or
you
not.
could do like 5 or something like that, and you know, this is your minimum. You get 5 of them, it's $500 or something along those lines. And just, you know, if you're only planning on coming for one, it's $500, but give us 5 dates, and that makes you eligible to come on those 5 dates and park in these spots. Or you get an annual one for $1,000 or something. Those are just numbers shooting from the hip entirely, but.
Well, I agree with you that, you know, how do you know when you use the 5?
Yeah, we're not gonna send somebody around on a Saturday
Well,
morning.
exactly, and that's why I like the idea of somebody's gonna, if they're gonna do it once and buy the permit. But if you're gonna do it on an ongoing basis, let's sell annual permits, and that way we know they've got their permit for the year.
It's kind of like the farmer's market idea. It's like that we had to talk about that. Well, she wasn't paying her overhead. So if you have that cost of doing business, then the problem could take care of itself, you know, and so same thing with here. It's like, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, establishing, even cut a break, you're gonna get an annual permit. I mean, something that, but there's gotta be some kind of line of their skin in the game, you know, to compare to who's actually paying for services.
Does this affect the fair at all? Because they would be rolling in, rolling out?
No, you know, and that question came up, but I mean, the fair is the fair, and that's a use, the fair is a use, it's private property, that's not really public property, it's owned by the fair board or whatever they, it's actually the agricultural society that owns that property. You know, and that is, I mean, that's really a part of that use, the part of the use that is a fair is vending. That's just what takes place.
It's an event. Yeah, it's a week-long event.
So they have like a food truck rally, right?
Yeah, it's like June
Coming
8th or
up?
something.
Yeah,
It's
I
coming
mean,
up.
I saw that, but I mean, the way we look at that is, I think, well, that, the use of that property is fair.
Okay.
Right, and that's what happens at the fairgrounds.
Let me
So
also say-
don't our city fees have to correlate to the costs of doing
Not
business or
as it
something?
relates to the use of public property, right?
No.
So you're giving someone permission to use your property, it's like rent.
Okay.
It doesn't, it's not the same as, yes, the fees for private property have to be commensurate with what it charged,
Right.
what your cost of administering that program on, but for public property, it's more like,
Okay.
it's more like rental property.
I guess I want to say I'm not opposed to the special use, the special event, come in one time for Artilicious or whatever. I'm not, what I'm talking about is in specific parking lots. But yeah, I don't want to deter if there's a special event, those people coming in.
That will beg the question, and should be our next discussion perhaps, is, you know, what qualifies as a special event? And, you know, what level do you have to reach to be able to close the street, downtown street, and say, hey, we're gonna do this here? Right now, we don't We have no
process.
for saying, okay, well, that's fine for you, Cinco de Mayo, but it's not fine for you, graduation party to close the street. And we really do need to have a process for, well, what entitles you to close the city street, particularly at downtown. So-
Well, haven't we always had some rules that we have to follow as far as Main Street, because that's a state road? And so it's really Maumee Street that we are concerned with? I'm asking the question.
I think the part that's downtown is not a
No,
state
it's
road.
not.
Now would have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it loops around
Yeah.
Now,
Broad,
the-
broad,
the
front to drive.
turnaround,
Yeah.
or not turnaround, but
Yeah. I know what you mean.
thank you, roundabout. Go roundabout.
But haven't we sort of established that in the past? I mean, we have First Fridays, we have yard fair and that kind of thing. I mean,
Blues and
we have
Brews.
those, yeah, blues and brewers, we have those special events that we already closed the street for. We have never closed the street for somebody who wants to have a graduation party.
Well, I would agree with you that that's true. I would suggest that we don't necessarily have a policy that says that. For example, I signed a permit today for the Croswell to close Maumee Street for better part of 3 days for a great big night. They can set a tent up out there. And that's not something we've done before, I don't think. Maybe we have. But, it's, yes, there are these things that we've customarily done, but every so often something else comes along, and so well, why not me too?
We have closed it in the past, I think, for like Erase Stigma, the 5K, I think it's in September this year. And it's Toledo Street, but, not a huge deal, few hours, but
2 hours in the morning.
So your question is, we don't have a process to determine which is which.
Right. Right. So I also signed a permit today for a graduation party, but it's on a residential, one block of a residential street. That's fine in that location, but might not be so fine with the merchants downtown.
So right now, you are just making a judgment call.
Yeah.
And is that normal for city administrators, or is there generally?
No. No, administratively, we shouldn't have unfettered discretion, right? We should be guided by a policy that you guys established in your collective wisdom.
Be open to the discussion. I mean, we could spitball all night here.
That's a secondary discussion, right?
Yeah, I think that's another discussion for another pre-meeting, but it's related. As you get into the talk about special events and what's okay for a special.
So are we in agreement that farmer's market and the lot on Church Street are areas that we would want to make available or not?
I agree with that.
I would support that.
I would too.
Now, special uses, so like that can be on the street then, or just, so whenever somebody wants to come in, they have to go to those two specific.
And we would
Or a
have
park.
spots in
Or one
there.
of the parks.
I mean, like Greg was saying, it wouldn't be up close to the building. It would be
Right.
close to
Right,
the road.
right.
Is there a chord about special events though being okay? Was assuming dependent upon what we define a special event to be, but those are okay on the street.
I think that I don't see, there's enough, contrary to popular belief, there's enough parking lots around downtown where I think we can keep off limits Maumee Street and Main Street between Front and Church and Winter and Broad.
Even during, say, like Artelicious, like a special occasion.
Yeah, I do think that there's still, I do think there's still enough space close enough that, that those vendors who have bought or released space on those streets should have that or that exclusive right to that area.
But it kind of makes a destination, so if people know where they're in those two lots, I mean, they're gonna, cause we were at the brewery in Toledo and people weren't just coming in the parking lot just to eat and leave. So I mean, it kind of makes a destination.
Yeah, I mean, even if during those special events, the parking lot behind City Hall, so you can just shoot up those two alleys there I mean, that's plenty
Apparently I'm
close.
disagreeable tonight because I don't agree with you.
That's fine.
I mean, I tend to Artelicious every single year and they always have the food trucks right down Main Street, right?
Yeah.
It's right in front of
Main
Mandy's,
Street.
yeah.
Yeah, in front of Mandy's. Oh, you're dating yourself. Huh?
Sorry, the
Um,
moose.
Yeah.
Well,
And I like having all of the food in that one area and having the smells and all of that. And I think it would detract from things like Artelicious if they weren't noticeable. And I don't know that it's hurting
Well, on that block now, there isn't any dining establishments past
other than the Moose.
the Moose.
And they generally have a special on evenings like that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think right now that's kind of exclusive in its own right, that it's not in front of rice and barley sauce.
Right. Yeah. So
So,
are you saying you would?
no, I would just cut those off right now and just leave them out. Because there's parking lots close enough, there's our Winter Street parking lot, if we've deemed it fit. There's the behind City Hall, there's Maiden Lane, or what used to be Maiden Lane over there, where like we could locate them close enough while keeping off those two streets.
And you don't think it would distract from the atmosphere that's been established?
It would change it, absolutely.
In Saline, they have a summer fair each year. All food trucks in the parking lot, and on the street, they have tables and chairs. So basically, they're encouraging you to go to the parking lot, buy your food, and then you come back to the street where other things are going on. Where you can.
Not a bad idea. I just would worry that people aren't going to know about them, aren't going to see them. I don't know. What'd you say?
I think
Put out
the
maps, like,
I think the food truck vendors are gonna post it on their Facebook that they're there and where they're gonna be, where they're located. So to your point, you follow them around. I think other people do too, if they wanna know. Yeah, I could be wrong.
And again, this is done by resolution, so easily amended if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, sure.
Right, and Kelly made a good point last time though, about it's like, I'm so focused on restaurants, and she's like, well, what about the other businesses? And I'm like, and during the meeting, I'm like, thinking I'm still going full board, I'm my position, but like, the more I gotta think about the night, I'm like, because Artelicious, those events, those restaurants can't handle the traffic, right? So there's gotta be other options, we all know that, but it made me think, even like the big events, like there's still other businesses downtown, and me being focused on restaurants isn't fair, and so, but I think having a designated location, the city can market it, Michelle can throw it on the page and whatnot, and just, I think having a good location, to, whether it be one or two, both lots, I like Vlad's idea of Church Street, as one of those, and just, people are gonna know where they're at, I mean, and I'm not waiting in line too much in those events either, I'm gonna find out where they are to get a corn dog, so.
I think we definitely though need to discuss policy for special events. Definitely at the next pre-meeting.
So Greg, what do you need from us?
Just guidance. I mean, we've got good guidance here. I think we can write the appropriate resolutions to go with what you adopt at second reading. Obviously, we can put those back on the pre-meeting next time to tweak them if necessary. But yeah, this is what I was hoping for. This guidance.
But I would like consensus to be built to give you clear directions so we can move this along and not drag it out,
let's get you
for
your
the
corn
summer.
dog.
What was that?
Let's get you your corn
Yeah,
dog.
I mean, it's
You're
corn dog,
right,
yeah.
that's what I want to move this forward, so we can start having.
And one thing I
discussions
know
as
I
possible.
asked Greg about was, how quick can we move this along? Because Greg and I met about it. And, it is a 15-day enactment from the second reading. you know, what, so we were looking at, you know, the possibility of, you know, just throwing this out there, we're looking at the possibility of having a special meeting just so that we can get this going a little bit faster. You know, that's just, it's a possibility to throw out there. So because our next meeting's not till June 7th, because of Memorial Day, we're not till June 7th.
That's too long.
So that's why we're thinking a special meeting,
We
you know,
could do a special one via Zoom.
right? So that was one thought that Greg and I had, because we were trying to get it moving, but yes.
So keep in mind, we want a resolution if you're gonna do a special meeting, so we should add that to your regular agenda if you wanna do that. I mean, we could talk now, I guess, about when that would be. Right, like you say, we have an extra Monday, but it happens to be Memorial Day.
Mhm.
We do have, so the next day, Memorial Day is 31st, so the next day is June 1st. We have planning commission that night, but, and ZBA, but they don't start until ZBA starts at 6:30. So if all you had was second reading, you could do it earlier, you know, you could do a 5:30 meeting and probably get that done on Tuesday.
Greg, on the private property ordinance, as you said, that's got to go back to you got to go to the planning commission.
And that needs a public hearing as well.
At the planning commission. Okay, so, and the agenda is already out for the June meeting.
Right.
God, it came out awful early. I mean, I'm thinking May 10th for a June 1st, the planning commission meeting seems awful early, but neither here nor there. But we could go all summer before we've actually got the private property ordinance.
That's true. Like I say, it's not impossible to do that on private property now. There is a interim process, albeit cumbersome. People really want to go through it. But yeah, the earliest, again, absent a special meeting of the planning commission, the earliest that that's going to be heard is the first meeting in July.
We should probably think about whether we want to have a.
I mean, especially with them as popular as they are, I guarantee there's a graduation party that's planning to ignorantly have one on their private property. That technically we could enforce some violation, and I don't want to do that, especially when it's a matter of days or weeks before we've got our things together. So whatever we can do to get this done before Memorial Day, we should probably really consider.
Like Mary said, you can do it by Zoom. We don't have to get all the stuff again.
Basketball shorts.
Yeah. I'm gonna put my business out there like that.
You've done it.
Is there a preferred time? I mean, does that Tuesday, the June 1st work, or do you want to try to
I
go?
think it's
Yeah, we have planning
Sooner
commission.
great. Do it just before the ZBA.
And what does that achieve?
That would be second reading, but by the way, that's probably the earliest you can do it.
Because
I think you have to have
certain
2 weeks.
dates. That's why we
between
decided that,
readings.
yeah.
When is Juneteenth?
The
June
19th.
19th?
I don't,
Yeah,
know if
it's
it's on the
June
19th or it's on the
It's, I think,
22nd, I think. I don't know, I'm going to it. I don't remember what day it is.
Yeah, let me.
I don't remember. 20th? I
So
don't know.
June 1st, we can do the meeting.
Mhm,
That's the earliest.
mhm, because of the days between. That's right. That's what we decided. I forgot about that.
Book it.
Yeah. I agree.
5:30,
Sure.
so, but you'll have to add a resolution though to your agenda to set that in.
And it would be a resolution to,
It'd be the second reading of the ordinance and a resolution for setting the fee and the placement.
Juneteenth is on the 19th.
It
It's
is
a
on the
Saturday,
19th,
Saturday,
okay.
19th.
Anything else on that? Not, hopefully we have a visual on parklets that we can share on the screen. Let me ask, is Jerry on? Not sure she was gonna be able to make it.
She was on
I
before.
am here right now.
Oh, she's here. I hear you.
I am here.
I'll let you talk about these visuals then instead of me.
Okay, it looks like, okay, so what I sent to Greg is just a couple of photos that we use basically to come up with the design. And I apologize, my tech director who's getting pricing on these has a more finished actual design. But we're looking at a 24 by about 7 foot wide, 7 foot deep parklet. So it would take far less than 2 parking spaces in terms of the actual size of that, which will allow for planters and perhaps some of the curb stops to be on either end and still within that 2 foot or 2 parking space footprint. And also at 7 foot deep, just about, and I may be off by a few inches there, it will not interfere with the bike lane and will be able to be flush with the curb. So the overall design, again, this is my bad drawing here, built into the parklet, the hash mark along the 2 sides will be planted. So with grasses and things that are reasonably low maintenance. Then on the, as I'm looking at it anyway, on the right side, there's a bench seat built in with a table and then a matching bench seat on the other, kind of creating a booth effect. So people could face each other and use the table for, meeting space, dining space. And then the remaining length of the parklet will be that bench seat will continue. And then 3 portable boxes that can be kind of moved around for individual seating. They could be pulled up right close to the bench seat. That's the permanent seat. So somebody could use them for a small table, set a laptop or their own food on that. But just allow some flexibility in how people can use the remainder of the parklet. Then on the far left side, just a small counter that could be used, people could stand at if they wanted to set a drink down, kind of like you might do in some bars where they have just a spot for a beverage, but it's not really large enough. You could have just your own individual food perhaps at that, or a laptop if you wanted to stand and work at that space, but there's nothing underneath it. So it's just a counter at countertop height. So that's kind of the overall design. And then I sent a couple of photos as that were the kind of inspiration. Thanks, Michelle, or whoever's handling that. So this photo really, this is, I think, really kind of the best illustration of what we're thinking with the 2 planted areas along the back and one side. The kind of slatted look is what we're going for in terms of the overall design of the space. You can see the built-in seating, a slightly slanted back just to make sitting along that back wall a little more comfortable. And then if you look at the next photo, so this photo, you can really see what the built-in booth will look like. Although in our case, we won't have the seating, the built-in bench and then the space and then the booth, that'll all be shoved to the side. We are not planning on anything up high as is illustrated in that at the corner. It will all be the same general height, which I think is about 4 feet tall. And then here in this example, you can see what those small portable cubes will be like, as well as the counter that will be on the end of our parklet. So that's it.
Michelle, can we see the locations again, the map of the locations? This is a reminder of the 2 light green lime colored areas of the proposed demonstration locations for this year.
So those are just a reminder in front of Mammoth and the Buzz on the, I don't know what side.
Southeast.
Thank you, southeast. And then in front of Chalmers on the other side. I think the smaller footprint makes a lot more sense. There were some questions about making sure that there is loading space for delivery trucks and that kind of thing. Wanting to be sure we're not taking up any more parking space than we need. This is still the 2 spots, but the parklet itself is really well contained within that. Each parking space is about 20 feet long, if that, or wide, if however you want to look at that. And they're about 8 feet deep on Maumee Street. I think a little more narrow than in some other spots in the community because of the bike lane.
And you
So-
said in your email, Jerry, that this will not intrude on the bike lane at all.
Correct. I think that was an important part of the overall design to make sure that as we're supporting being, having a reason to come downtown, we would not want to interfere with the bike lane, which is another great reason to be downtown.
I like the idea and it looks good to me. I saw it, other places on their websites that they are doing this. The concern I have about the portable boxes. Those are purely portable, like people could pick them up and move them off the parklet?
They could, Mary. The goal will be to make them rather awkward and heavy.
Okay,
While they'll be easier to shove, for example, than actually pick up and walk away. And it is a little experimental. Will they literally walk away with someone? I hope not. But I think it's worth trying it. There's other places that have seating downtown. We don't see their, tables and chairs walk away. So hopefully this will be a well-respected part of the community.
Greg, I guess I have a question for you. Are we looking at moving those loading zone signs down then because of that? Or what, we're in front of Copper House and
Yes, if we take.
Chalmers?
Yeah, if we end up taking the loading zone, we'll put the sign down.
How about maintenance and upkeep? Watering plants, washing down tables, they're gonna inherently get messy in some capacity, whether it's dust and dirt or, somebody's pizza sauce. Who's gonna take care of those?
So we're working with the businesses that are most closely adjacent, that they would help with the general upkeep and cleaning. I think the DDA is committed to helping with that and supporting that as well in terms of, just as you walk by, making a point of walking by and taking a look. So I think it's kind of experimental, but I feel like we have really good community buy-in on this, and I think that will help support and keep them clean.
I'm absolutely with you on that concept. I get concerned though on the appearance of ownership of those parklets when those are supposed to be public for anybody to wander and to enjoy, as well as just maintaining a minimum standard. If somebody's charged with that rather than asking somebody to consider doing that, we'll be far more successful. And we don't need somebody sitting in bubble gum or, wearing a white shirt down there on their way to the Croswell, put their arm on the table and, I think that as much as I don't like to, I think city staff should be responsible for those in some capacity and not like, well, let's assume that trees and parks are going to take care of the plants and DPW is going to take care of the wipe downs, or let's make it somebody's responsibility to make sure that those are handled appropriately before we put it in place. Just my opinion.
I agree.
I'd be happy to work with Greg and or city staff around that idea. I'm sure, we want them to be clean so that they are used.
Yeah, me too. They're awesome. He's a corn dog. And he's the kind of guy who would drip the mustard all over the place.
I clean up.
Yeah, you do clean up.
Band-Aid has a bunch of them, and it's awesome. They're really cool. Really cool.
So we have a resolution on your agenda, just to support the concept. there's no, assuming that passes, I think, unless the budget really gets extreme so that we have to come back to you, we'll be on our way to trying to build these after tonight's meeting.
Great, look forward to it.
Thanks, Jerry, for all your work on this. I know it's taken a lot of work and a lot of time.
I'm really happy to do it. Thank you. And thanks for the, support and endorsements. Been a lot of people who've had lots of conversation and shared good thinking around this. So it's fun to see it like maybe going to happen real quick.
Okay, I don't have anything else for the pre-meeting there. Public comment.
Is there anything else?
Yeah, well, I'd like to bring up something. A few meetings back, Commissioner Castleberry brought to us a proposal for a blight coordinator position. And, at the time, we were in the throes of trying to figure out if we were going to reorganize or whether we weren't going to reorganize. Since then, tonight, we'll have an opportunity to approve the appointment of Ms. Lawrence. I see she's on the Zoom, which is great. But great, impressive credentials. Really pleased to see that you found somebody, Greg. That's good. The one concern that I have, though, is doesn't seem to be a whole lot of experience in the area of code enforcement and blight fighting, if you will. And I'm wondering if we revisited the idea of having a blight coordinator, perhaps reporting directly to you, that would do as the commissioner came up with a couple of meetings ago, where the individual reporting to you and having code enforcement responsibilities, would that allow our new community development director to get into the groove? And I mean, granted, everything else is her wheelhouse, but I'm just going to ask you, would that make any sense? Would you think that would help? I don't want to set her up for failure, and knowing that is a huge issue for the commission. So I throw that out there.
Well, I still think the idea of a coordinator is a good idea. Whether it reports to the administrator directly or to the community development director, I think is still a topic for discussion as we develop. And I think our next steps for that were to develop a job description, and we didn't get that done for today's pre-meeting, but we hope to have that at a pre-meeting in the near future. And part and parcel of that is then funding it as well. And I think we want to go strong and maybe endow that position so that we know it's going to be there for a period of time with some of the, lack of a better term, found money we have this year that we can put toward that effort. One thing you'll find Angela does have is some experience with microloan programs, and that is a piece of what we want to do with blight as well, important piece. And so, to me, it makes sense to be within the community development department, but that's certainly open for discussions.
Okay, I think we ought to take a look at that. I'm a little bit frustrated in the sense that we've kind of had the attack on blight being somewhat stalled out right now. We aren't going after it as aggressively as we've said that we want to, and we said it's the #1 priority that we have. So I just like to see us get moving. That's all.
Here.
Any other things before I open it up for public comment? At this time, we will have public comment, and for the record, please state your name and address.
Ken Tokars, 110 South Locust. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ken Tokars, 110 South Locust. I was given a challenge by one of the commissioners to find something good in the board book and come back and report back to the commission on it. And it was exciting that I was able to find something very quickly that you guys do very well. And if you get a second, I'd like you to turn to page 104 of page 144 in the packet for today. And on there, you're going to see the monthly income report put together by Fire Chief Massengill. And it kind of reports back the monthly income from ambulance services. And I think that's a great thing that the city does, because it's being transparent and letting the public know that, hey, we're buying these ambulances and we're going to get a fire truck, and this is kind of how we're getting this money. What I'd like the city to do, because it is such a great thing, is expand upon it. A couple areas that come to mind would be the marijuana facilities, and I was hoping that we could add a monthly report that lists how much income we're getting from the state or federal government for marijuana facilities. So it'll kind of let the public know, hey, we're saturating the community with X amount of marijuana facilities, but it's bringing in X millions of dollars or X hundreds of thousands of dollars. Another area where I think the city could use that report is to make or to have your utilities director, Mr. Sadler, do a similar report. We're spending, I think it was $9.6 million on the Johnson Controls project, which will turn out with interest to be about $13.4 million. And the low-hanging fruit on that, which is the bread and butter of where we're going to make most of our money, is from the water meters. And I was hoping that Mr. Sadler, similar to what Mr. Massengill does, is he could look at, you've listed in the contract all the meters that are going to get changed out. And I was hoping that on a monthly basis, Mr. Sadler could report back to the Adrian City Commission of how much additional money we're making from the new water meters. Once again, I want to congratulate the city on doing a great job of holding Chief Massengill accountable for the ambulance income. And I'd ask you to expand it into the water meters and let us know how much money we're actually making off the marijuana facilities on a monthly basis. Thank you.
Mayor, Commissioners, Don Taylor.
Go ahead, Don.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm Don Taylor, 475 Meadowbrook Drive. I want to go back to the food trucks. I wholly endorse the idea of the food trucks, and the commission looks forward to, planning commission looks forward to addressing that. So I'm not sure I actually heard your discussion properly, so forgive me if I'm wrong here. But when it comes to special events, I thought I may have heard Commissioner Watson say, there really isn't any reason why we have to have food trucks on Maumee or Main Street. They can be in the parking lots around there. Brad, if I'm wrong, I apologize. But I'm going to speak right now with my passionate, and you know what it is, it's about our delicious. Having food trucks on South Main Street, and we can position them so that they're not within 100 feet of the Moose Club if they serve food, is integral to the success of that event. So if you think it's important that we do our delicious every year, and we're going to do it this year, I tell you for sure on the 18th of September, I hope we don't preclude food trucks from being on Main Street or Maumee Street within the parameters you establish on special events. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is Tom Jacobowski. 1225 North Main Street. Want to talk about the food trucks real briefly. I think it's a terrible idea to bring food trucks into the city of Adrian. You have businesses that come here, they are established. We put an incredible amount of money into this. I've got a huge investment in the building. The city requires me to do parking lots, requires me to do trash enclosures. We've got landscaping. We're putting thousands and thousands of dollars into having a business here in Adrian. It is expensive to do that. Okay, these vendors are going to be coming in. They have no investment in Adrian. They are not paying taxes. They are not improving the city. All they are doing is using your utilities. They are putting wear and tear on your parking lots. Now, Commissioner Watson said that he wanted to, he thought the medical, the marijuana dispensary the food truck issue was a non-issue to him. However, that's probably the worst example of what can happen with food trucks here. You have a vendor who is from out of town, coming into town. He is not employing local labor. He is not paying taxes, and he is sitting in front of 2 vacant units. How can we have food trucks coming in when we have vacant spaces here in the town? What is their incentive for coming in and doing this? Now, the vendor that is there happens to be a competitor of mine. Understood. I welcome the competition. However, what is to have him there on a recurring basis and to have him in an established place that he has established customers and he's advertising on his Facebook page, I want this every Friday. They're going to be there every Tuesday. Why don't we work something out where the guy is renting a space where he is actually filling a vacant property and not just taking away? And where does that money go? He's going to load it back onto his trailer and take it back home with him. There is no contribution to the city of Adrian. So you're putting unfair competition, especially with this 100-foot rule that you believe is not close enough that we should, park them right in front of each other. Well, come on, guys. If you're within sight of another restaurant, if you can walk to it, at my location, a good car wash could invite Smokehouse 52. They've got a trailer. How about Slows? They've got a trailer. We can put that there too. We can put anything there. How are you supporting your other businesses? I mean, you're making sure that we don't put any of these.
Your time is up. Sorry. Thank you.
Muted.
Go.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
This is Sue Jacobowski, 1225 North Main. I'm also a co-owner of Jake's Smokehouse. I would like to extend on my husband's suggestions. As a flight attendant for over 3 decades, I visited a lot of towns, and what I saw in those towns was that they promoted their entire city, not just their downtown area. They had points of pride that they would put in. I don't see that here in Adrian, and I would like to see that. I feel like the downtown is important, but I also feel our entire city is important. So that was point number 1. Point number 2 is about the competition. The struggle that the current restaurants have had with COVID has been indeed very expensive in alterations to our buildings. So in reply to the one commissioner who said he doesn't like waiting in lines, that's a support of your local businesses. To say that I would like to have an alternate chicken expense in being able to go to a parking lot and get waited on in 2 minutes instead of supporting Kentucky Fried Chicken is an insult to a local business. Number 3 is that when you're talking about your food trailers, there was no mention of prioritizing local businesses that do have food trailers. I think we would be given special priority if we choose to participate in this. And I would not want to or expect to pay the same fees that everybody else did should we decide to promote ourselves that way. Number 4, the cost of buying a vehicle is equivalent to a car, and the permit will not add that much into it. And it is an unfair advantage to the competition of the expenses that we have as brick and mortar buildings. Special events, I believe, are okay, but to run it on a daily basis would be unfair, and you'll start to see some of your brick and mortar businesses give up, and you'll have more vacant buildings. Okay, the last thing, and I am going to say this is a bit of an insult, is that we are currently asked quite frequently for donations to give to the city and to the downtown promotions. We did so with our Licious. We gave a tremendous donation to them, and then we found out when we got there that we had strangers from out of town parked next to us who were making a tremendous profit that day. So there has to be some equality and consideration in what your local businesses are actually doing. Okay, I think that's all that I wanted to cover with you.
You've got everything here.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. My very last point, you just reminded me. This city you can get from end to end in 7 minutes. Everything is readily available and easily accessible. And we have enough variety within our city limits to cover every type of food cuisine there is. There isn't anything missing here. So I'm not really sure what it is.
Thank you. Your time is up. Hearing no more public comment, may I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned, and if we're all okay with it, can we take a very 5-minute bathroom break? So we will begin our regular meeting at 7:10. Sorry for everyone that's on already waiting, that our pre-meeting ran over once again. I will not. I don't-
Oh, we all.
Oh, that's right.
Take a little longer.
You just can't win, right, can you? You scheduled earlier
Yeah, I know.
or later?
Well,
and
I still think we
you
made the
can't win.
right call.
You did, but
This was a good 6 o'clock start. Usually don't get it.
Yeah, Brad texted Lad and I, he goes, just in case you guys know, it's 5:20, the chambers are locked. And I'm like drying out of the shower. I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna get out of it. Yeah, right.
As far as marijuana goes.
Yeah.
So the city would have information.
I know.
Yeah.
I have a good idea.
I do Bobby, too, but I would-
Seven.
Yep.
Yeah.
I actually didn't. I got distracted writing out all the changes. All right, ready?
So we're rock and roll.
I call to order the Adrian City Commission meeting for May 17th, 2021. If everyone would please rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Present.
Commissioner Hall,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Watson,
Present.
Commissioner Strayer,
Present.
Commissioner Gauss,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Present.
all commission members present.
May I get a motion to approve the minutes of the May 3rd, 2021 meeting?
Move to approve the minutes.
Support.
I have a motion from Commissioner Watson with a second from Commissioner Halt. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
minutes approved by unanimous vote.
May I get a motion to pay the vouchers as presented?
Will you pay the vouchers as presented?
Support.
I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Roberts. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
vouchers approved by unanimous vote.
Under communications, C1 is from finance. It's a revenue and expenditure report for March. Are there any comments or questions from the commissioners? At this time, I'm going to be asking for a motion to amend the regular agenda to strike special order 1, public hearing to hear and consider comments on the proposed declaration of 1003 North Broad as a public nuisance due to it not being published in the adequate amount of time, and to table resolution R21-079 until June 7th of 2021, and to add resolution R21-097 to set up a special meeting for June 1st at 5:30 p.m. for a second reading of ordinance 21-005 for mobile food vending. May I get a motion to amend the agenda?
Move to amend the agenda. Gauss.
Support. Strayer.
I have a motion from Commissioner Gauss with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
And let me see if I get this right. A motion to amend the agenda to strike special order, a public hearing, to hear and consider comments on the proposed declaration of 103 North Broad Street as a public nuisance. To remove that from the agenda until the June 7th meeting. No, just to
Just
remove it
remove
from the
it.
agenda.
Yep.
Okay, and then to table R21079 to the June 7th meeting. And to add resolution R21097 to set up a special meeting at 5:30 p.m. to hear a second reading of ordinance 21-005 for mobile food vending was approved by an all yes vote.
We didn't.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, we did vote. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we did. Yes, that was correct. See, I'm trying to pay attention to you so much. Good job. I spit that out pretty fast. Sorry, Robin. All right, moving on to our regular agenda. Under ordinances, we have ordinance 21-005 is a first reading and introduction of an ordinance to amend chapter 46, the Adrian City Code, to add section 46 2021-207 exemptions and to create a new article. Oh, see me in my Roman numerals, 12, mobile food vending. And I would like to ask our city administrator to just please elaborate on that ordinance before we move on, since it is just a first reading.
So as discussed in the pre-meeting there, this would allow for the activity of mobile food vending with permit on public property and locations be established by resolution of the city commission and subject to a fee to be established by the city commission.
Thank you. Moving on to resolutions. R21-078 is from the city attorney. It is a resolution to set a public hearing to declare 1003 Broad Street and 1575 West Maumee Street public nuisances. May I get a motion to approve the resolution?
Move to approve the resolution.
Are there any public comments?
Mr. Vasalka, you're on mute.
I'd like to comment.
Yes, go ahead.
I am Harvey Kasalka. I'm an attorney in Adrian. I'm here this evening to speak to you on behalf of my client, Andy Patel, who is the owner of the property in subject property. He has a signed agreement. We sent the city attorney a copy of it, and I'm sure she has it with her now. The purchaser plans to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in improvements to the property and to make it a motel and a national chain. But that sale will likely fail if you proceed with this resolution now. Proceeding with the resolution would render this property vacant for a year, meaning it will likely never reopen. The last thing the city needs is another huge empty building deteriorating for years until it is eventually destroyed. And my client will be filing bankruptcy. But what I do want you to do, and I want you to know that my client does not deserve this. He does not profit from any illegal conduct at his place of business. Just the opposite of is true. Now, drug use is not just an Adrian problem. It's at least a nationwide problem. And this motel is not the only motel in Adrian with this problem. They all have this problem. It's a bigger problem with this motel because it's the oldest motel, major motel in the city, and the cheapest. If this motel closes, this illegal activity will simply move to another motel. Your officers will verify that. I see Chief Emmerich is here. I'd ask you to talk to him and any of the other officers. Ask him about this. Ask him if my client is cooperative with the police. Talk to the chief about this. My client does what he's asked. Now, he's a meek man of Indian descent. The police ask him, for example, that he fenced part of his parking lot to keep people out of it. He did that. He did whatever the police want. The police also ask him to house certain persons from time to time, and he does this. Persons, by the way, that are sometimes the subject of this illegal activity. Other agencies, charitable agencies, bring persons to his place of business, and he houses them. The police will tell you that they have concerns that if he closes, the next motel that takes these persons, the manager there will not be so cooperative with them as my client is. The officers have told me this. If you follow the remedy, you may find the city closes a different motel every month as the business, every 6 months as the business moves from the cheapest motel in town to the next one, its successor. What are we asking? Only that you delay taking action in this matter for 30 days so we can complete a sale, which will save the motel, save valuable business for the city, I think.
Hearing no more public comment, are there any commissioner comments?
I do.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I took a look at that and it appears the defendants from problems going on. And I feel that the owner has been given way more time than necessary in that year and a half to fix those problems. And he could have sold it at any point in time. And it wasn't until we put our foot down and said, enough is enough, that he actually found a new bidder. And so we've given enough. It's time to move on.
Commissioner Watson?
Yeah, I'm more interested, why aren't we having the public hearing tonight? I didn't catch the,
It was not noticed in adequate amount of time in the newspaper.
That was.
Those are broad street.
1,000.
Oh,
This one had.
This one
This one's
hasn't even
on-
been
this
on
one's
before,
back.
sorry.
Yes.
We already had a public hearing for this one, right?
No,
We have not
No.
had public hearings, it's just a resolution to set. the
We're just
public
setting the public
Oh,
hearing.
yeah, for both.
Yeah.
One of which was supposed to be tonight that we just punted on.
Yes,
Why didn't we do it tonight for 103 or 1003? I'm not following.
that's what I
Why?
thought you were asking.
What?
That's what I thought you were asking, because it has to be noticed in a certain amount of time, and now with the newspaper,
Uh-huh.
with their deadline, it was missed.
And we didn't know that before we,
They changed their day.
the telegram did.
They change their
Yes.
deadlines with their shift and where their publishing takes place and things, they change their deadlines and then we're going to miss it by one day.
Got it, thank you.
So we already do have it set up to be published on June 1st
Yeah,
for both
so,
of these, so that we won't have that problem.
so assuming this resolution approves, there's no issue or concern on that matter of whether or not that special hearing will happen.
Exactly, it's
Thank you.
already been submitted to the paper, just waiting for your approval for that date.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Yes.
There is a public comment. I was just informed they were trying to get through and we couldn't unmute, so go ahead, please.
My name is William. It's,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm hearing an echo. I have a few questions about the city ordinance that I would like clarification on. Firstly, section 54.2, part A states, the city hereby determines that whenever the sale, use, furnishing, giving, or possession of controlled substances or drug paraphernalia occurs on any property, the result is increased criminal activity in the neighborhood surrounding the property, increased pedestrian and or vehicular traffic in the surrounding neighborhood, and disruption of the peace and quiet of residents living in the neighborhood surrounding the property, thereby creating a public nuisance. My first set of questions follow the example. Two people meet in a parking lot of a store and an illegal drug transaction takes place. Does this mean that the store now meets the criteria to be labeled a public nuisance? Take the same example, but change the transaction location to the store restroom instead of the parking lot. Does this meet the criteria to be labeled a public nuisance? In both examples, the owners have no knowledge of the transaction taking place. Let's take it a bit further and say that the owners learned what was taking place and called the authorities. Does this put them at risk of being labeled a public nuisance? They have alerted authorities to illegal activities happening on their property, but in doing so, they now have a police report stating that they are in violation of section 54-2, Part A. Will this discourage business owners from contacting the police when they find illegal activity happening on their property? Next, I would like to look directly at the wording possession of controlled substances. Does that mean possession of any kind of possession or possession without a prescription? If it's possession of any kind, then almost every business will fall under being a public nuisance as people take their medication with them. Also, the wording drug paraphernalia is of concern. How exactly is that defined? If someone has a bag of needles because they are diabetic, does that constitute drug paraphernalia? A needle can be used for insulin just as easily as it can for heroin. Will business owners have to tell their employees that they cannot bring medication to work, or as they could be labeled a public nuisance if it's found on company property? At that point, will businesses have to decide between possibly being shut down or possibly violating a person's rights? Now, I understand that it can be annoying to the police if they need to repeatedly service calls to a business, but at the end of the day, they are here to serve and protect the community. I also understand that it may not look good for the city administration to have a building with a quote unquote reputation. My biggest question is, are we going to punish a business that regularly does what is asked of everyone in the community? We are taught to reach out to all authorities that can help when there is illegal activity
Your time
happening.
is up. I'm sorry, your time is up and we did not catch your name and address. Can you please state that, please?
My name is William Wilno, 4209 Treat.
Thank you. Are there any more commissioner comments? I know that we had a few. I didn't know if there were any more now.
You know, as Mary said best, I mean, we've given a lot of ample time. I think in the past, like, there were some things about some security gate that was gonna be installed, and then I've never seen a security gate. It was called the Travel Lodge, that was called the Adrian Inn, and we all know there's a lot of problems there. I mean, so, I mean, when we take action, then that's when you wanna come, come back to the table, so,
I would call this a blighted property for the last however long, couple of years. Probably longer than that, but, yeah. Time to do something about it.
And they have weeks to close the deal before this hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just setting a hearing tonight. Yep. We're not voting to consider it a nuisance.
I would just point out to the commission too, that though the ordinance allows you to declare a nuisance for up to 12 months, the key phrase being up to. So if you do find that there's information that's presented to you at the time of the hearing, you do have the flexibility with what you decide on the night of the hearing.
Thank you. So I have a motion from Commissioner Watson and a second from Commissioner Castleberry to set the public hearing to declare 1003 Broad Street and 1575 West Maumee Street public nuisances. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry. Yes. Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R21-080 is from Parks and Engineering Services. It is a resolution to approve a change order for the Kawanis Trail Expansion Project. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Support.
Are there any public comments?
Yes, I'm Cody Waters, 431 Meadowbrook Drive. I'm also the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club Lenawee. And I just wanted to voice my support for this project and the expansion. Right now, it is set to dead end or end on State Street. And if you ask people on the east side ends on the other side of Division. So I think if we're going to continue to invest in our community, in access for all people, in creating a more well-rounded, healthier community, expanding that to Division, that's the least that we can do. There is a lot of community pride on the east side of Adrian, and that will be shown to the rest of this community when you do that. So I just wanted to voice my support for that and say thanks for continuing the project.
Are there any commissioner comments? I will say, I attended the A3 Coalition meeting yesterday, and there's a little concern with a few people that do live right next to where the trail is going to be going in. They were asking if there's the possibility, and so maybe this is something we can discuss later on, of maybe a little extra lighting, maybe it's cameras. They already find people wandering into their backyards, and they're just concerned, and they would like to see just a, they're just concerned with all the traffic that'll be coming. They're excited about the trail, but they're also concerned about it. So just something to consider as we look ahead, and that concern was brought forth yesterday. I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Castleberry.
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yep.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R 21-081 is from Parks and Engineering Services. It is a resolution to award a bid for the purchase of a generator for the Adrian Police Department and City Chambers Building. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Support.
Are there any any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Strayer with a second from Commissioner Gauss. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R 21-082 is from Utilities. It is a resolution to award a bid for the purchase of West Side Wellfield Cleaning and Inspection Services. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Or Castleberry.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Castleberry. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R 21-083 is from administration. It is a resolution of support for parklet design and placement. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Support.
He's giving it to. Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Watson with a second from Commissioner Roberts. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R 21-084 is from administration. It is a resolution to confirm the appointment of D. Angeline Lawrence as the Community Development Director. May I get motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to approve the resolution.
Support.
Are there any public comments?
Mayor, yeah, Mayor,
I was gonna ask you if I should do
Ms.
it.
Lawrence is on, yeah, she's probably waiting for me to say something, but she is on the Zoom meeting tonight, and if you wouldn't mind
Yes.
having an opportunity for introduce yourself to you all, I think that would be nice.
Go ahead,
Good evening.
Angeline, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Angeline Lawrence, and it's a pleasure to meet you all and to hear the business that's already going forward. I'm very excited to get started. I do hear your concerns in terms of code enforcement, and my present position, I do work with zoning officers in terms of taking in resident complaints and looking at businesses to make sure that they are in compliance with approved site plans. So although I did not put it on my resume, that is something that I do, and fully aware of the need for code enforcement in order to keep a community viable.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Are there any commissioner comments?
Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Gauss.
I said for the pre-meeting that I'm excited. We've got somebody who has a lot of experience in zoning and planning, and that's a great thing to be able to get this job filled now after so many months and actually relieve our city administrator from having to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. So we welcome you and certainly look forward to having you join us here in Adrian.
Thank you.
And I hear you go by Angie. So from one Angie to another Angie, welcome.
Thank you.
So I have a motion from Commissioner Gauss with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Congratulations.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Resolution R 21-085 is from the city clerk. It is a resolution to reappoint Pat Baker to the Election Commission for a one-year term. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution. Support.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R 21-086 is from the city clerk. It is a resolution to reappoint Jane Castle to the Election Commission for a one-year term. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Second, Castleberry.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Watson with a second from Commissioner Castleberry. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
resolution approved by unanimous vote.
Resolution R 21-087 is from the city clerk. It is a resolution to appoint Diane Bach to the Election Commission for a one-year term. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution, Castleberry.
Support, Roberts.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Castleberry with a second from Commissioner Roberts. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R 21-088 is from the city clerk. It is a resolution to approve a commercial marijuana facilities permit application for Adrian Elite. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Support.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Watson with the second from Commissioner Halt. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R 21-089 is from the city clerk. It is a resolution to approve a commercial marijuana facilities permit application for Flourish. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Support, Castleberry.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Roberts with a second from Commissioner Castleberry. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry.
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R21-090 is from the city clerk. It is a resolution to approve a commercial marijuana facilities permit application for North Coast Provisions. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Support.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Strayer with a second from Commissioner Roberts. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R21-091 is from the city clerk. It is a resolution to approve a commercial marijuana facilities permit application for TCMI AG LLC. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Support.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Roberts with a second from Commissioner Halt. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R21-092 is from the city clerk. It is a resolution to approve a commercial marijuana facilities permit application for TCMI MFG LLC. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Support Castleberry.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Strayer with a second from Commissioner Castleberry. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R21-093 is from the city clerk. It is a resolution to approve a commercial marijuana facilities permit application for WPL Industries LLC. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Support.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Roberts with a second from Commissioner Gauss. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer.
Yes.
Very fun for you. Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
I'm on autopilot here.
I know, I'm
Resolution R21.
Consent agenda.
Resolution R21-094 is from the city clerk. Resolution to approve a commercial marijuana facilities permit application for WPL Industries LLC, second application. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution. Gauss.
Support.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Gauss with a second from Commissioner Halt. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R21-095 is from the city clerk. It is a resolution to approve a commercial marijuana facilities permit application for Zen Republic. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Support.
We get it too.
Thank you. Oh,
Okay. Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Gauss and Commissioner Strayer. Roll call, please.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Hou,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R21-096 is from the City Commission. It is a resolution to direct the city administrator to initiate a text amendment to the City of Adrian zoning ordinance to allow for mobile food vending. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution. Sorry.
Support Castleberry.
Are there any public comments?
Tom Jacobowski's 1225 North Main Street. The intent of your zoning change here is to add vibrancy and desirability to the city of Adrian. During a special event, food trucks add to the special event. The food trucks are actually a draw for that special event. Having them here on a daily basis is going to detract from those special events. People want to go down to those special events to see these food trucks. There's also a percentage from those vendors, at least there should be, for the people who are holding that event. That's money that is coming into the city, not being taken away. Power for most of these food trucks is a generator. What about air quality? What about noise? I mean, you expect it at a special event, but do you really expect it on Church Street between 7 a.m. and 2 a.m. or 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.? What about the air quality? What about the noise? Okay, and then how the vibrancy and desirability, how vibrant and desirable is Adrian going to be when your brick and mortar restaurants are going to close because of the food truck competition? If you want to have special events are great. I think there is a great purpose for it. I think you guys should approve food trucks for special events, but for special events only. If you want to have a food truck on a recurrent basis, either buy, rent, lease, or do something to one of the vacant spaces that's here in Adrian. We can't turn them all into marijuana facilities. Thank you for your time.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
Nancy Eaton Gordon, 712 Oxford Court, also business owner at 160 North Winter Street in Adrian. I do not own a restaurant or any type of business that relates to restaurants. But I do echo the concerns of some of the restaurant owners who have come here to speak today. This food truck ordinance comes at the worst possible time, especially when restaurants are just now trying to reopen and recover from COVID, from the massive shutdowns, the massive changes they've had to do to their business. I would propose instead that the city, instead of going full tilt headlong into food trucks and also going full tilt headlong into these the outdoor seating spaces, why don't we start with one, see how it works, and then maybe propose the food trucks as a temporary thing, as been suggested, for special events. At this point, we don't even know if vendors would come on a regular basis. We don't know what quality of vendors or what quantity we would get. Are we gonna get people fighting for permits on a regular basis or not? Or are we even gonna have enough for this to be a concern? Rather than diving headlong into unknown waters, why don't we at least start with special events and see if we can get enough of a quality draw of people to come here for special events, to hold food trucks, to have them here and see how it goes. That seems like a perfectly acceptable solution. It can be passed by resolution and always amended and changed if needed, if it does prove to be not only fruitful, but workable for the downtown area and the other businesses. My concern is one of economy. We are putting the restaurants that are downtown, of which there are few, in a worse position right now by asking them to not only compete amongst each other, but further compete against outside food trucks, which even when they're paying for a permit, they're not going to have the overhead cost of taxes and property taxes and other utilities. They someone else had said, and I agree, it's a concern. At the end of the day, even if they pay for a permit, they pack up their profits and go home. We can't count on that money staying in the city. So rather than going full tilt and approving full trucks on a regular basis, why don't we hedge our bets, approve them for special events, see what we can drum up with that, see how it works, and then go from there. Thank you.
Hearing no more public comment, are there any commissioner comments?
I'd like to say a couple things. And one of the things we discussed in the pre-meeting was that these vendors who would be setting up on public property would be paying a fee that would, in essence, be similar to paying property taxes. Also, we don't have to open up an entire parking lot. Food vendors, you know, you set aside 1 or 2 spots and that's it. Okay, so in essence, it is like the citizen is just saying, okay, we're not going full bore. Okay, we're not opening it all up. We're saying you're going to pay a fee so that it is like you have a business downtown, and we're not, you know, we're going to allow a couple spots in a couple different parts of town. That's it. It's not open season for food vendors. I'm assuming that everybody agrees with me on this.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Okay. I just want the public to know.
Yeah, you're not alone.
I have a motion from Commissioner Roberts with a second from Commissioner Castleberry. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Howell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Goss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry.
Yes.
Mayor Heath.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by unanimous vote.
Resolution R 21-097 is from the City Commission. It is a resolution to have a special meeting on June 1st at 5:30 p.m. for a second reading of ordinance 21-005 mobile food vending. May I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Move to adopt the resolution.
Support.
Are there any public comments? Are there any commissioner comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Roberts. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes.
Commissioner Howell.
Yes.
Resolution to set up a special meeting on June 1st for a second reading of ordinance 21-005 to add mobile food vending was approved by unanimous vote.
In your packet, there are miscellaneous reports. Are there any questions or comments, commissioners, on those reports?
R 2179. I know we did a lot, but I can't.
Oh, that was the one that.
That's the one we took over June 7th.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
yep,
That's the fire department one?
yes.
Okay.
Hearing no comments, I'm going to move on to public comment. Just to reiterate, there is a 3-minute time limit, and for the record, please state your name and address.
Mayor and Commissioners, Don Taylor, 475 Meadowbrook Drive. It seems that when you were discussing R 21-080, I stepped into the kitchen to pick up my dinner, and I apologize for missing that. But I would like to point out a couple of things about the extra cost of the Kawanis Trail Expansion Project. First of all, if my memory is correct, private sources came to you with a cost of $240,000. They were putting up $160,000. Kiwanis Club put up 40 and you put up 40. I fully support this project. So when it came time for the extra costs, which are certainly warranted, I know the Kiwanis Club said they were not able to give any more money, but unless I'm mistaken somewhere, and I listened to some of your discussions, I don't believe you ever went back to the the private funding source to ask them to participate in these extra costs. So why are we at the city paying all the $43,000 or plus, and the other funding sources are not? So I just don't think that's quite right, since they brought that project to us in the beginning. Thank you.
Hearing no more public comment, I'm going to move on. Are there any commissioner comments?
I do.
Go ahead.
So there have been some things that have rocked our city commission over the last week and months. And to me, the biggest one is the possibility of city administrator Elliott leaving. He would, if I count correctly, he is our 5th city administrator in about 4 years, which is very disconcerting. I have heard from several city residents just this past weekend, what are we doing wrong? Why can't we keep good qualified people? And that's a really good question to ask of us, the city commission. And that's something I think we as commissioners need to think long and hard about. What are we doing? Because it's up to us to keep our employees happy and here in the city. It's going to prove to be harder and harder to get good qualified people to work for us and to move the city forward. City Administrator Elliott is not perfect. However, I think it is in our best interest to keep him in Adrian, if at all possible, and to support him 100%. And if you haven't spoken with him yet, I would suggest that you connect with him and find out how we can support him at 100% to keep him here. Because every time we move from one city administrator to another, we get set back months, years, because everything is in flux and nothing is set in stone. People are learning the job, we're learning them. So my statement is, I would love for you to stay. And I will do whatever I can to have you be supported here and to stay in Adrian, because I think you are doing an excellent job. I had the occasion to speak with every single department head, and they were all in favor of you staying. Every single one of them did not want you to leave. And I want you to know that. And that is how I feel too.
I have something to say. I wasn't planning on it, but I will. Been on the city commission for 5.5 years, elected twice. I don't think I have to be told what I need to do in this position. I agree with everything you say, Commissioner Roberts. But with that being said, I think you need to, in my opinion, practice what you preach. And so that's where I'm at with it. I don't need any individual commissioner to tell me how to do my job. So I think I'm pretty effective. And I'll leave that there.
Hearing no more commissioner comments, may I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Support. Thanks.
I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Watson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned, and you want to give 5-10 minutes before we begin our special meeting? What do you want? You tell me.
Let's roll. Let's roll.
Five. We will begin at 8:06 PM with our special meeting. We're gonna take a 5-minute bathroom break.
Okay, you go first.
All right. I call to order the special meeting of May 17th, 2021. If everyone would please rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pete,
Yeah, present.
Commissioner Hall,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Commissioner Watson,
Present.
Commissioner Strayer,
Present.
Commissioner Gauss,
Present.
Commissioner Castleberry,
Present.
all commission members present.
We do not know yet, but it is presumed that we may go into closed session. So we are going to, at this time, take any public comment. That way you don't have to wait around while we are in closed session. So if you would like to make any public comment, there's a 3-minute time limit, and please state your name and address. Hearing no public comment, I'm going to ask you if you want to go into closed session.
Yes, I do.
I have a question about that. 15.268 of the OMA Act says closed session for permissible purposes. They are, they list, we can evaluate a public officer, an employee, a staff member, or an individual agent. And our contract is with Hennigan and Associates LLC. It's not an individual or a staff member or an employee. So I just want to ask if we can go into closed session with an LLC.
You're going into closed session with me because I am the only attorney there, and I am the attorney who contracts with the city.
But the contract is with an LLC, and we've also been instructed to speak with Nancy Gordon Eaton at times as well. Who I'm assuming is an associate of LLC or Hennigan and Associates.
No,
We're
she's
contracted
not.
with-
She's an
So you
associate of
contract
another
her
law
outside
firm.
of that?
She's another law firm who was appointed at the time that I was appointed as city attorney to be the backup in the event that I'm not available.
So does it matter that it's an LLC regardless of that? Can we go into contract or go into closed session with a contracted LLC?
We've never had that question before, but I would say that I'm the agent of that LLC, and so we can go into closed session. And I would also ask if you think that you can't go into closed session with an LLC, how can you evaluate the city attorney at all?
That's a great question, because it is in your contract that you get evaluated. So I have been reading through that, and I've been studying OMA. So that's a good question.
Every OMA has an agent that represents, or I'm sorry, every LLC has an agent that
But
represents.
we don't
them.
evaluate every LLC that we contract. Or every organization that we contract. either.
I understand that. What I'm saying is that every LLC has a representative agent, and I am the agent for Hennigan and Associates.
So that since she wants to go into closed session, may I get a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Gauss. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
I'm not clear on the legality of this, so I'm going to say no.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer,
I have a question about legality, but I'll say yes.
Commissioner Gauss,
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry.
No.
Mayor Heath.
Yes.
The motion to go into closed session was passed by a 5 yes, 2 no vote.
So we're going to be going into closed session, and I just want to say to the public that we do not anticipate any action coming out of the closed session. We will come back into the public to adjourn. But we don't know how long that'll be or at what time. So just to make you aware of that.
I have a question about the consequences of going into closed session. If it is found that there is consequences and we go in, are we liable for that?
Not if it's not an intentional violation of the OMA.
So that criminally, but civilly, are we liable for that?
Not if it's not an intentional violation of the OMA.
I would like to abstain from this meeting.
You would need a motion for that and a vote from your fellow commissioners.
So may I get a motion to have Commissioner Castleberry abstain from the meeting?
I think I better abstain also, just because I am not clear at all if this is legal, unfortunately. I don't know.
Would it help to table the whole discussion until we get clarification? And close the meeting? I don't know. I don't know what else to do.
I don't know either.
Perhaps. I hate doing it because we're all here and we're prepared to do it, but I think Commissioner Castleberry's raised some issues. Our city attorney has a vested interest in moving this forward, and I think we all do, but I understand and we want people to abstain. I want everybody to participate. I think that's important if we're going to have an evaluation. Does it make sense that we close the meeting, we table it or whatever, consult with the MML in terms of whether we can have a meeting in a closed session? I don't know. I'm just throwing this stuff out there.
We're back to the vendor talk again. And we can do whatever we want. I don't really care.
I withdraw my motion.
Huh?
I withdraw my motion. Let's go. You can have an open session.
All right, so all public that are on, her motion is withdrawn to go into closed session, so it will be a public session.
And
So
Commissioner, you're okay to participate in the open
Yes,
session?
because I mean,
Your issue.
Even
your
though
issue
it's an
is doing it closed
LLC,
session.
even though it's an LLC and you're not sure that you can evaluate an LLC, and you think that.
well, it's in your contract that we can evaluate the LLC, but the OMA issue of closed sessions is where.
It's in my contract that you can evaluate the city attorney, which is me.
Would you like to continue to
Can
be?
can we evaluate her?
The issue is going into closed session with an LLC. I'm comfortable evaluating you.
But part of the argument was that it's not the attorney, it's the LLC.
Right.
So how do we
it's
do
about
that
Going into
evaluation?
closed session. Can we go into closed session with a company or an LLC? That's my question. I don't have an answer for it.
I don't either.
So we have to reverse that motion. We made the motion and it passed. To go into closed session, we have to.
Yeah.
So I need to ask for a motion to come out of closed session.
Yeah, to go into regular session.
All right, may I get a motion to come out of closed session and go into regular session?
So move.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Halt with a second from Commissioner Castleberry. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
Commissioner Watson.
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer.
Yes.
Commissioner Gauss.
Yes.
Commissioner Castleberry.
Yes.
Mayor Heath.
Yes.
Commissioner Howell.
Yes.
The motion to come out of closed session and to go back into regular session is approved by an all yes vote.
All right, so as we head into this evaluation, you were given some areas to rate and explain on various topics in here. I would like to go item by item, and whoever wants to go, and we'll go through that. And we will just go through each one. All of these just to clarify again, all of these came from the city code on what the duties of the city attorney are. We did specify though, and put some extra verbiage in there when it pertained to blight and marijuana and some of the other things that are not actually listed out and explained as in detail in the city code. All right. So whoever wants to go ahead on, rating and explaining how the city attorney has performed as the legal advisor, attorney, and counsel for the commission in the following areas. Legal advice proven to be accurate and technically correct, provided the best and honest recommendations, identified potential issues that may put the city at risk, and inform the city commission of the legal risks that the proposed actions might generate.
I'll start. Just before I start into my comments, I just want to set my scale. The 1 through 7 is how I understand it is a 4 is that it's meeting my expectations. And Tamaris, you and I, we've talked about this before and where I go with my scales and things like that. So I think that we have a decent understanding on where that's at. My rating on this one was a 3. The basis of that is I think your mastery or overall mastery of the code, as well as being a municipal attorney, should be a little bit ahead of where it's at with the experience and the number of years that you have been on the job. We fully were aware that you were a newer attorney when we hired you, and I was part of that process. So that's where that's at. Quite often when we discuss matters, there's consultation to other areas or other attorneys, MML, insurance carrier are two of the common ones. And so I guess with saying that is that the expectation in the next 12 months would be there'd be noticeable improvement of that where you would just have that information or knowledge just from working through it. But with that, just coming from myself as a commissioner, at times it feels like we're getting representation from somebody that's not the city. So my point is if we go to Galuli and ask him for information, he's representing a different body that doesn't necessarily have the same interests as the city. So a 3 on that one, I think that's a great area for improvement or concentration as we move forward.
And in that area, I put you right at the average at a 4. I feel the advice is proven to be accurate and correct. It's just the delivery of that info, the way it is communicated could be improved upon. It sometimes comes across defensive, the way that it's communicated. So I think that could be improved upon. But I definitely think that you identify potential issues and risk, and you do communicate those immediately with the commission and the city administrator.
Thank you.
Go. I would say a 3 on this. I think that you can see by tonight that oftentimes you're giving advice and you have not sold us on your authority. We had one instance where we discussed no bid contracts, and at the end of the discussion, I don't think anybody was clear as to where we were. And so I think that oftentimes maybe it's like the mayor says, it's your delivery, but you don't have my confidence.
I guess I will go also. So, and I will echo some of the statements. And I too do not have a strong confidence in your legal opinion. I have tried to do a lot of the research on my own and understand where, what we're doing and where it's coming. And I don't feel like I should have to do that. When you give a legal opinion to us, it needs to be clear and concise, and I need to be able to understand it as a layperson. And that is not the case. The one thing with the bidding process, my understanding is that we can waive the bid, or the city administrator can waive the bid. And that wasn't what was discussed that night. And when you have legal opinions, my understanding is you're supposed to put those in writing to us as an actual legal opinion. And maybe if that happened, I would understand it better. I'm not sure. But right now, I don't have the confidence in that. There are many things that are, I believe there are 3 lawsuits against the city at the moment. I have no idea where they stand. I read through the billing statements, and there's things in there, it says, you know, like motion to dismiss. I don't know where we're at with that. Did it get approved? Did it not get approved? Was there a reason it was approved? Was there a reason it wasn't approved? I really struggle with evaluating you on some of this because I don't feel like we have the information. I did not do a rating system.
Well, to give you a little change of pace, I have every confidence in your abilities to represent the city and protect the commission. I've seen you provide training to the HRC just to help us not get accused of violating the OMA. I've seen you want to train the planning commission, but have been prevented from doing so by our city administrator. So I have every confidence that you know the charter inside and out, and what you're doing is protecting us, the commission, and the city from violations. That's where I'm at on this.
I didn't write a whole lot. When I have a question, I call you and you answer it. I'm not a needy commissioner when it comes to the attorney position, when it comes to like information and whatnot. I gave you a 5 because I have no reason to give you anything lower than that at the time. Obviously, you're 3 years into municipal law, so obviously you got to continue to grow. But you know, I have no issue with the way the communication is with me, and if I didn't have faith in you that I was getting the right information, then I would take the proper action, you know, accordingly. So I give you a 5 on that.
I just wrote that I would like more advice when you send stuff to us, such as the hotel. You'll give us some facts, but I need like advice. This is what this looks like moving forward. This way, this way, this way. I want more, like more opinion, I guess.
You're talking about like the.
Yeah, I don't want to talk a lot about it, obviously, but.
No, but you're talking about the situation we discussed tonight.
Yeah,
That's
and
okay.
fire back a lot of questions. I know,
You did.
if they can, you know, if it could just be clarified more and more of your legal opinion and advice and what to do, I guess, more than just the facts to be helpful.
Thank you.
I'm gonna move on.
Yes.
And have you, okay.
Yeah, I prefer just.
Okay, moving on to the next one. You know, you were asked to rate and explain how the city attorney has prosecuted ordinance violations, specifically blight, and also prosecuted and defended other cases in court brought against the city.
I took this opportunity to focus on the blight component of this. I rated you an average. You know, overall, I feel like it's a bit of a slow mover, not in the attorney's office, but in general, and it's rapidly developing right now, but we don't have much to evaluate your effectiveness or level, but you're doing what I think is expected of you at this point in time. You know, the only thing in this area that I worry about or have feedback for you on, I guess is the right term, is that in many things, you're not in the negotiation seat. And sometimes, you know, you've got a decent defense in a situation where, hey, I've got to go to the commission on this matter, or you know, this isn't, versus, you know, somebody saying, hey, I need 2 weeks or 30 days to make a sale complete. So I feel like at times, as we've learned through the blight or some of the properties that we have to have taken action on, that you have assumed more authority than I'm comfortable with you assuming. And maybe that's just for the sake of, we can't all get together, and I totally respect that. But again, this is a newer kind of initiative or focus for us as a commission, so that will come with time, I think.
Let me say, honestly, I thought this was kind of an odd question because we don't have anything to base this on. I mean, I know that we're trying to be more aggressive with blight, and I feel like our code enforcement team is out there doing their job. We beefed up code enforcement. That's a process. I don't think that process has moved into your onto your court maybe as much as it will in the near future, but I don't think we really have much to grade you on there. I know that I have heard some disappointment as far as how some of the cases have progressed. But in all fairness, I think that this process is a slow process. And I think at some point, all of a sudden, there could be a lot of stuff in your lap. And then we got something to judge you on. But right now, I don't think we have anything to go by. And any other cases that the city is involved in, we have other firms that are taking care of it.
I agree with Lad. I mean, you pretty much took my words out, is that we don't, obviously we started our blight committee meetings in October or so, and so you were in those meetings, fired up and ready to go, but we've installed based on what the current temperature of City Hall is and just the commission. So we haven't had a chance to really judge you on that, how you do in court, what kind of production are you producing. So I didn't even give you a score on that because again, I don't have anything to go on. So what I do know is that you are passionate about blight. You're from here. You're a homegrown product. And so you're not just passing by. So I'll leave that there.
So I know there's been accusations made that you're letting tickets and whatnot lay on your desk and just not processing them as quickly as you should. But I've also asked you about that, and I've seen the reports that would indicate that that's not the case. That things are being processed. In terms of the job that you're doing in the prosecution, obviously I haven't seen it personally, but I have talked to Judge Shadler, who praises you for the job that you're doing in bringing these cases to her courtroom. So from that standpoint, I think you're doing a good job.
I kind of agree with Lad. I didn't know how to face this one. Like, I was like, I really don't know where we're at with blight and how that looks on your plate. I know you're prosecuting those, but I'm just not sure of the tickets where they're at, I guess. I know we reviewed the blight manual and I would really like to see that start moving again. So that was what I just wrote, blight manual.
And that's kind of where my comment was, I saw the effort and the knowledge that was put into, the blight manual and just, really, really starting to go at this with blight and, even example, even public nuisances, things like that. So, I rated you a very good on that because, I do see that you have been putting in that work on blight. We may not be seeing the fruits of that yet because it takes forever with blight and it's going to be it's going to take a while to get through the court system, but that's where, but mine was based more like I'm working on that blight manual and seeing you in those blight meetings and where that was headed.
I don't have a whole lot more to add other than I'm not sure where we're at with blight because I don't have a clue what the dockets are or what you are actually prosecuting. What you've dismissed without, prejudice or without, thinking that this house had met the requirements. I don't know. And so I can't read things.
Moving on, the next one, we were asked to rate and explain how the city attorney has prepared, reviewed all ordinances, contracts, et cetera, as it pertains to her knowledge of the city's code, charter, and then communicating to the commission on such matters.
I gave a 5 on this one, an above average. I feel like the charter amendment, when we had to fill a vacancy, was handled very well. We did break that one down. I can remember the meeting that we broke it down back here in a pre-meeting, and it wasn't an easy one to understand as to why we couldn't put somebody in place, why we had to go to judges for their interpretation. And ultimately, I mean, it was a project, and you handled that very well, and that was a win. And again, it's an experience thing, and day-to-day charter interpretations can be a bit clunky. And I referenced the no bid contract in the situation that we end up in. When we lay the timeline out, it makes some sense of there's 2 different opinions and as to how things can be handled. But again, I think I would feel a lot more comfortable of somebody with more experience, and that comes with time.
I rated you right where Brad did, and no, we did not talk. I just, I said your knowledge of the city code and the charter, it was really shown with the charter amendment. And, that if you don't know an answer, you seek outside counsel, whether it be the MML or whoever it might be. My only critique of this is when I'm going to go back once again to communicating, since that's part of that explanation there on communicating to the commission. I just said that your communicating on those matters could be improved upon to the commission in the way it is presented.
I'll say that I thought communication was pretty darn good on the charter amendment when we had to fill a vacancy for a commissioner because that was complicated. I don't know if it was you or Nathan Bird who actually realized there was an issue with the charter, but you were the one that I think put nose to the grindstone on this and dealt with Lansing on this. I also feel like with marijuana, things were extremely crazy at times, and things were changing every week, often as far as how that was being dealt with. And when those laws were being written, and I think that you stayed on that very well and communicated that stuff to us fairly well.
I gave you a 5. Again, it goes back to like Commissioner Watson said, it's as you go forward, experience is key. I also know communicating to the commission on such matters is a 2-way street. I can't expect you to communicate. If I have questions, I have to go to you and ask you personally. No, I do that. Can't speak for my colleagues, but I do that. And so again, I think you're above average in this on number 3, but again, just time, experience. I mean, you can't put a price tag on that. So that's why I gave you a 5 there.
The biggest business that we've got in the city right now is marijuana. And you wrote the ordinance. You did the research. You did what had to be done. And you've become pretty much acknowledged as the expert in the state of Michigan on marijuana ordinances. Anybody who is opted in is writing ordinance that come to you for the answers. And I think that's good. I mean, for me, that's kind of a home run. And I think you get that right. I think some of the challenges that you have or have had, in my perception, is that your review of contracts, ordinances, is somewhat in order the timely review is somewhat hindered by that information or contracts being not shared with you on a timely basis. So you see a contract a day or two before it's got to be signed. You see an ordinance a day or two before it's got to go on the agenda. And I'm sure that that's frustrating. I think you work well. And as far as communication, like Commissioner Held, you know, I'll call you if I've got a question. I try not to do that because I know you bill by the hour, and you know, I really don't want to be running the bill up. But anyway, that's my opinion.
Based on, it's a great idea, what Commissioner Gauss said. If there's a question that one of us has about charter or anything, it's always an education for us to get that answer back. Does that make sense? So if you send that answer to all of us, we all are learning the same thing and staying on the same page with that. But I haven't been here that long, but when I do have a question, I ask and you come back with an answer fairly quick. So I think that you know that fairly well, but just based on the hourly thing, I thought it'd be a great idea if, you know, because we all might have, you know, two of us might have a similar question. If it got answered in one fell swoop, it would be helpful.
I don't know you guys for all of your phone calls individually, just, you can breathe on that, it doesn't happen. If I did, you would have read me a very long time ago for my notes. I don't do that.
And unfortunately, I've had a different experience with the communication. I asked for some feedback about something that happened in November, and you became defensive. I don't feel like you took ownership and for how I perceived what was happening that night of the meeting. And so there was definitely a breakdown in the communication between us. And I had hoped that a relaxing of that would get better, but unfortunately it has gotten worse.
I'm going to move on. The next one was to rate and explain how the city attorney calls to the attention of the commission all matters of law and changes or developments therein affecting the city, specifically knowledge of the marijuana laws and regulations, and communicating to the city commission on such matters.
Guess I'll jump in. I gave her a 6. When I have former CEO Flourish Leah tell me that we are so far ahead on our ordinances and our processes in the city of Grand Rapids, which is the second biggest city of Michigan. I can get to tip the cap to you. A gentleman that is in the marijuana business, seen him on the sandbar, same thing. We were aggressive in the beginning, and just your overall knowledge of that industry, I think is very important to us. And you do keep me, you know, in commission privy to that, you know, for those changes. So that's what I gave you.
I gave you the same rating and basically a lot of the same comments. You know, a few have reached out to me in the past when I'm on a tour or something like that, telling me the exact same feedback. And the one thing that I will add, and the reason that I gave you that number 2 is just that even though you can crack down on them if they're doing something wrong, you have a good rapport with those owners of those grow facilities and dispensaries, and they respect your opinion. And I have seen that. Thank you.
I rated it a 6 as well. This is Tamaris' sweet spot. You know, I went through the whole process over the last 3.5 years. It was heating up as I was elected in the ordinance, and all of the votes came after I was on, and after Tamaris was lined up. You know, there's a time there where we just kind of held in place, and then we moved forward after Tamaris came on. She brought herself up to speed on those matters as they were specific to us, and for the betterment or for the codes of the city. On this one, you know, I think it's time for you to step out of the day-to-day or the renewal time and time to be an advisor for our city staff around that, and then hopefully freeing up a large amount of your time to invest it in other areas that are part of our mission or our new focuses.
Thank you. Kind of, the second what Brad says, I clearly missed all rollout of that, but it seems to be a well-oiled machine now, so I think you've done like your due diligence and it's working, so letting, not have, you probably don't have to invest as much time in it now as you did in studying it all, because you know it, so like you said, maybe letting some other people help you out with that, taking some of that off your plate would be a great step forward.
I agree with Commissioner Watson, in the sense that it's, you worked hard up front, you said it's your sweet spot, and you continue to do it. Also agree that things can some of that stuff into the renewals and just, the routine stuff can transition to city staff. But I think that the thing that impresses me the most, and God knows I've talked to a lot of, you have the respect of the owners in the cannabis industry, in the sense that you're tough, but you're fair. They know that, you're not gonna, play with them and do them dirty, if you will. They have a lot of respect for you. And they know that they're not gonna get favors, they're not gonna get, any special treatment, but they know that they're gonna be treated fairly. So I think that's very, very important for you as the attorney, for us as a commission, and for the city as a whole.
I'd say that personally, marijuana was extremely important to me as a commission. I was one of the commissioners that was first to the table, said we need to do this. And so I basically felt like I was putting my personal reputation on the line by saying that I think this is good for Adrian. I still believe that. And I think that you went at it head on, full speed ahead, and did a very good job with it. And I think that, I hope that the citizens of Adrian are now starting to see the fruits of your labor. These, all of the retail outlets look great. The grow facilities are impressive. And so, yeah, you did a really good job on that, and I appreciate it. And I feel like you made us all look good on that. But I do feel like some of the other commissioners that we don't need to see your fingerprints on marijuana as much anymore, when all they're doing is renewing their licenses. That's not something that you should be billing for.
I have no issues with the marijuana business in the way that you have handled it at all. It's come across very smoothly. I actually, for the most part, understand all of the districts and how many we can have here and there. And I agree the buildings and the coding of it has gone very well. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You were then asked to rate and explain how the city attorney performs other duties as may be prescribed by the charter or the city commission in a timely and efficient manner while minimizing legal costs and spending billed attorney hours in the most cost-effective measure. In summary, is our city attorney providing expected value?
Let me start with that and say that I'm disappointed here. First of all, I view the city attorney's job as an advisory role. Okay. I also thought that when we brought you on, we would be we're bringing you on for fewer billable hours. We're now paying you more than we paid the previous attorney, which I have a hard time swallowing that. I went back and I looked through a lot of your Friday reports. I'm assuming that anything that's on a Friday report, we're getting billed for. And there are things on there that there was an issue with, you were giving us information on a COVID update at Adrian College, government emergency COVID information, which I can basically get out of the Detroit paper. there were a number of issues like that. So I felt like we're being billed for information that I can get someplace else. A lot of that information was things that I feel like I could get from our administrator. Anything that was COVID related. I also feel like sometimes you have your interest ahead of the city's interest. And I say that in that you wanted to get an odor advisory group around, which was going to involve you spending a lot of time getting that around, yet the commission or the administrator, nobody ever gave you that order to go that way. So I feel like you would have benefited from it. But anyway, those are just some things that I've noticed. And like I say, I don't know exactly how long you've been in this position right now, if it's 2 or 3 years, but I guess the fact that we're paying more for the attorney services than we were a few years ago, that bothers me.
I'll give you a 4. In over looking backwards, I couldn't figure out a term other than on the job development training and things like that. And in all the rest of my comments have also hopefully aligned with this idea, is that it's time to move forward. Like let's get going on some initiatives or some other business that is valuable to the city. And in some of my other comments in the back, I'll just kind of bleed into that a little bit, is that, you know, we as a commission need to be able to provide clear direction to a vendor or to an employee that we have. And we're not entirely there yet. And so when I say we got to move forward, I don't have an answer for you because it's not my answer, but it's our answer. And what are we going to do next? And I think we're all on board with blight, but really it's Commissioner Hill, Commissioner Strayer, yourself, Gordon, at these meetings being involved deeply in them. But what direction have we given you on that? That's on us.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm ready to provide more clear direction, more opportunities for you to succeed and shine. But as of right now, looking backwards, you're meeting my idea of value, but I want to move and I want to move quick forward from where we're at right now.
I couldn't agree more, Commissioner Watson. You know, I don't know if there's an issue with what we think you're doing or not doing that you should be or shouldn't be, it's on us for not giving you the direction. Because I don't know that we've ever done that. You've been left to chart your own course in many, many ways and bring us what you think we are expecting from you. I just don't think that we've done a great job of telling you what our expectations are. You're going to get some of it tonight, you know, or you're getting some of it tonight.
Right.
But some of it is on me, on us, all of us.
I gave you a 5, and you know, I know that, you know, how many hours you're putting in with, you know, if it's not marijuana, it's light, it's something like that. But my concern is that, and this is, so I'm taking responsibility for it. I said commissioners and myself, I feel like we're taking up a lot more of your time with trivial or whatever it might be. I feel like instead of being a concerted effort coming forth with issues, you're getting something here and you're getting something here and you're getting something here, and we're taking up a lot of your time. And that concerns me. It concerns me that that instead of being a unified group coming with concerns, that you're maybe fielding tons of phone calls or emails, and that is taking up a lot of your time. I don't know that for a fact. It's what I think is happening and what I have perceived just from what I have seen, but that is highly concerning to me. and we're not getting the best value, but that's on us if that's what we're doing to you, because that's not what we should be. And that is highly concerning as a commission as a whole, but also, you know, when it pertains to you and your time. And are you really spending your time on things that truly are important to the city, or are we wasting your time? And you're not able to spend it on the things that we need to be looking at.
I gave you a 5 also. I've never seen one of your bills. I do see your line item in the vouchers, so I know how much we do pay you. I think the mayor is absolutely right. I think that, you know, when we hired you, you know, the other company or firm, I asked the question, you know, so if I email you, does the meter run? When I call you, does the meter run? They said yes. Talking to you and understanding that I know the meter doesn't run every time we call you. I think the mayor is absolutely correct when it comes to taking up your time on things that you should be focusing on, which has come, you know, because city's your client, and we're pulling you away from that because of all the other dramas going on. And so I do know my role. I do know that I cannot tell you what to do. I've never told you what to do. And just because you don't do something I tell you to do, I understand that we are a body and consensus has to be built. So I can't get mad at you for not doing what I want you to do, because that's not the way we should do things. So again, that precedent was set about 6 years ago, believe it or not, before my time even. So I think it's a clear and crisp direction issue. Expectations. This is you didn't even have an evaluation last year, right?
Right.
So how are we going to hold you accountable to anything when we haven't A, communicated with you, or B, gave you an annual review, which is in your contract? So again, I don't get mad at you for not doing what I want to do, because I know I've never done that. It's not my job. My job is to, if I want you to do something, change process or structure, it's to get 3 other commissioners to agree with me that that's the right way to go. So I give you a 5 on that one.
I rarely call you, and I only respond typically to your email that you send to us asking for a response. So I don't have that conversation with you, and I think that's due to like transparency with government. I agree that we should, as one body, tell your direction should come from us as one body. I think there is a breakdown in City Hall with communication, and that causes one of the key factors of the lack of that direction. I think there's some concern about, I don't know, calling around, I guess, is a concern when it comes to the OMA. I did take a look at your bills, and I did that, and so that I can find the most cost-effective manner for us to operate, right? So I am responsible for taxpayer money. I don't bother you unless I have a question that is probably referring to one of your emails, et cetera. If you're being pulled in different directions by commissioners, I think we need to be directed to be on the same page before you do anything, because that's not necessarily correct either. We're not one of us responsible for the taxpayers' money that's paying you. We're all responsible for the taxpayers' money that's paying you. So that's a little concerning. I would like to see your bills. You know, I want to know how much time you're spending on life, so we can plan, we can forecast, we can decide, make decisions based on, you know what, this is taking more time than we thought, we need to figure this, or this is not taking as much time as it used to. You know, we don't have to. So I would like to see, and we talked about it in the past, your bills being more itemized, the time that you're spending on them. I think that would be really appropriate, or not, excuse me, appropriate, really helpful in making decisions moving forward about where we need to, you know, as Brad said, where we need to put that direction. So if blight is taking a long time, why? What can we do to help? Things like that. So that would be helpful for me if your bill was itemized, so I know what we're doing, where we're working hard. Are we dropping the ball somewhere else, or, you know, where can we instill some more due diligence?
I did take a look at the bills. I just glanced at them just to see what you put in the bills and what you're charging the city taxpayers. A lot of it I didn't understand because of your shorthand, and I just didn't have time to get back with you to ask you some of that shorthand because I just had a chance to review them the last few days, and that's my fault, and I understand that. But I do think that we need to have you act for the city commission, not just for a couple of things that different city commissioners have asked you to do. We should all be aware of what you are working on at all times.
I think that would help change some of the breakdown in communication in the commission as well as City Hall, if we're all on the same page. So, I mean, I kind of brought it up earlier with Gordon mentioned it, you know, calling with questions. And as a new commissioner, it's just helpful for me to learn as I go too. So those are always helpful. Those like getting, you know, knowing what somebody else is questioning. And I know we have to be careful of some of that, but that's I think it would be helpful with that.
Yeah, it's kind of like what Kelly said, you know, if Kelly has a question about something legal and she sends it to you, it's like you should, I mean, I'm not gonna tell you what to do because I just said I don't, but you know, maybe you can send a reply to all and hey, Commissioner Casper had a question about this, X, Y, to all of us, just so we can be privy to that information too. Maybe Lad had the same question or Brad, you know, whoever, so.
No problem. I did, this is the last question. Almost. Oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
So you were asked to rate the city attorney overall and just provide general comments. I will just start it out. I will say that I gave you above average, I gave you a 5. I don't give out 7s. I don't give out ever. I'm just like that. Nobody gets an A+ in my class. No. But I feel like you have an extensive and growing knowledge, you know, of municipal law, and you're working to learn more and improve. You know, you showed that in the area of marijuana, and you're showing that in the area of blight, and that you're learning and bringing that. And in that you truly look out for the commission and the city of Adrian, and I truly do believe that. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily come across exactly that way, but I do believe that it is your best interest.
I can go next. Like I said before, I think you have done a very good job with marijuana. That was important to me. But I'm going to tell you, when somebody FOIAs me, that gets me in the gut and it makes me mad. And I am not over that yet, that you FOIA'd information about your bosses. And I can't put that one aside. And because of that, you know, I chose not to fill out this form. I chose not to grade you because I feel like you disrespected me in FOIAing information about me. And so, yeah, I'll be here tonight. I'll tell you what I think, but I don't want to play this game. And so I'm very disappointed with that. I know that when we were in the throes of marijuana and you were working very hard, I spoke to people in the public and I said, I think that Tamaris would run through a wall for us. And I believe that, but I honestly feel like you have let me down on some other issues. But the FOIA thing really got to me. The straw that broke the camel's back here was the incident with the Planning Commission. When I heard about this fiasco with the Planning Commission, I basically wanted to write my resignation letter that night. That was a trumped up charge. I thought it was one of the most ridiculous things I have ever heard of. I was extremely disappointed with your actions. You reached out to MML and to the Attorney General. I thought that made us look foolish. And it will take me a while to get past that. I mean, I feel like your intent was to make our administrator look bad and the person who runs the Planning Commission look bad. And so Moving forward, that's something that I guess I need to get past. But there's been a couple things recently that have stuck in my craw that it's going to take a while.
Understandable. Thank you.
I feel many of the same sentiments as Commissioner Strayer, especially due to the FOIA. I don't feel that I can trust you and communication going back and forth. So having more communication with you is going to be challenging for me. I'm not saying it's that I'm not going to have that communication, but I want you to know it's going to be a big challenge for me.
I think I have and I will only speak of myself here. I take this seat, I take service very seriously. I've done it most of my life. I started at 18 years old in the United States Navy. I take service very seriously. So in this position, I am responsible to the community. I'm responsible to the taxpayers. When I am operating, that's always in the back of my mind. I think that there has been a complete breakdown of communication in City Hall, and I'm not going to point fingers either way anyway. I think it's a lot of people, including probably us. So I did speak of us, excuse me. But I have worked in law enforcement or the legal field for a while. I know I know clearly not a lawyer, nor do I know as much as a lawyer. But I know some things, and I am concerned at your skill level, being the only city attorney in Hennigan and Associates LLC. I am concerned that we aren't able to operate at the standard we can because of that newness. And I'm not saying that you're not capable at some point. I'm saying you have a lot of room to grow and knowledge to gain. But that causes us to pay more hourly because it takes longer. It causes us to question your opinions and thoughts. And it causes us to, and I'm saying us again, excuse me, those things. I think that emotion gets put into some of the work that you do. And we make mountains out of molehills that shouldn't be there. And, if we're gonna, I am offended and alarmed that you think you're entitled to my thoughts and my conversations with other people when it has to do with city business, even if it has to do with you, because my job is to make sure that you are doing your job for the city, excuse me, and all of its residents. So I'm offended as well at what recently happened. I think that didn't help, it hindered, and that shows lack of communication, etc. But when I have something to say, I put it to you in an email I think we need OMA training. So I will tell you when I think there needs to be things, but some of this is just general, my concerns are just general inexperience.
Guess I'll go. I rated you above average. Again, I mean, to get an A or B, like the mayor said, it's a tough pill for me to swallow because I am tough on the we'll say 2 employees, but it's actually 3. The city commission controls. When it comes to the FOIA, I wasn't FOIA, but when it comes to livelihoods, we can sit here on the city commission with our $3,000 a year stipend that we're vastly overpaid for, right? And sit here and when you're talking about people's careers and livelihoods, right? It's not a game. There was comments made in the regular meeting that we should support our administrator. We should support him. We don't, I mean, we as city commission, what have we done to support him? Okay. And my comments back to that was practice what you preach, right? And so I'm well aware of what's going on, but when it comes to setting expectations, giving clear direction, city commissions failed you. They have. And so piggybacking on that is that why are we supporting their homegrown commodity we have that has roots here, family here? What are retired here? I don't know. Is it picking a side? I don't know either. I'm not gonna speak for anybody else, but I know this chaos started 7 months ago. I do know that. City commission disagreed. We're a fine old machine. We disagreed in public. Now half the board doesn't talk to the other half the board. Why in 7 months did the light switch go on? Huh? So I'm frustrated, but again, I understand how this all works. I've been here long enough to know it. City commission right now is as fractured as ever been, even my 5.5 years, the 3.5 I came to the meeting before that. I want to fix it, but we have failed you. And so I will leave that there. I rated you above average again, because I have no reason not to. But I do support you. I want to see you continue to grow. You have some learning to do, some experience. But if your bosses, I have 43 employees. If I have an issue with my employee or my manager, I go to them and tell them to their face. I don't govern by emotions. I don't. I make decisions. We are all paid to make decisions. So when we fail our employee because we won't communicate because we're mad at her or him, not my problem. Because I talk to everybody. If I have a problem with you, everybody knows where I stand. Everybody knows my position. That's all I got.
I rated you an average. As evident, first bullet point, being managed by a commission of 7 is extremely difficult. I've provided you feedback and general comments throughout the review. I wrote mine on the back, but then wove them into the rest. The one thing that I did write on here that I hope you've heard it through my other comments, and if not, maybe this will bring it back, is for you to work on being consultated with us, sitting on the same side of the desk as the commission, being in line with what our goals are, with what our missions are. You know, the real hard part of understanding the 7 personalities to work with, how we like to be communicated with. Yes. It's so hard. But you know, throughout my whole review, it's all about development. And if I felt like there wasn't development or room for development or a desire for development, those ratings would have been.
I have some of the same thoughts everybody's talked about, but you know, I think you still have learning to do. Absolutely. I wasn't on the commission when you were first hired, and I know you were pretty green. I know there were attorneys around the city who thought it was a mistake because you didn't have the experience necessary to do the job. And now those same people come to me and say, you know, she's really grown. She's learning a lot, still has a lot to learn, but is working hard, doing a good job. And, you know, I think I had reason to question her abilities, but she's proven me wrong. As Commissioner Halt pointed out, you're a local woman. You are passionate about the city of Adrian. You've lived here, your family's from here. That doesn't make you a better attorney, but what it does do is make you a better representative of the city in support of the commission. So, and I think that's, you know, I think all those things are important. I know that you have continued your education. I know you are growing, you know, with that, the education you're pursuing will make you even a better attorney. So, you know, I think that's good, and I don't know that everybody else knows that. yeah, we're a fractured commission right now. There's at least 3 commissioners that won't talk to me. And hopefully we'll get past that. You know, we'll work through that. I'm bound and determined to, you know, I'll talk to anybody, but I am bound and determined that we're gonna fix this problem and make things better, if you will. So I think you do an above average job. I think you'll continue to grow. And God forbid we ever lose your services, because I don't know who we're gonna find to replace you if that happens. So everybody think about that. Thank you.
Before I have Tamara's speak, you know, if there's anything else, I know a lot of you touched on areas of improvement already as you were doing your general comments. You know, I'm gonna say to you what I said. I've said this before to other friends that are lawyers, but you know, there's an arrogance, there's a pride sometimes, and that's what comes out. And you know, I think there's a defensiveness. You're always used to defending. So you know, my phrase is listen to listen, don't listen to reply. And I think that that's an area of improvement. Like listen to listen, don't listen to reply. And I know that's very difficult for an attorney because that's what your, you know, that's what your training is, to listen to reply. But you know, to tone down some of the defensiveness and just improve the delivery of what you're trying to convey. You know, like I said, I think you do have the city's best interest at heart, but it's just the delivery needs to change, because we're not attorneys. We're not. So that's why that, like somebody already said, like the commission, we all are different. We all communicate differently. We're all different. You know, some of us are fine with that. It doesn't offend us, but it might offend others. And it's a different style, and not everyone is used to that style. And I think that needs to be improved. Any other comments from anyone? Okay.
I did prepare some materials for this evening. Some of them will be a little bit hard to discuss because we are in open session. And so, yes, if I refer to them as just the page, I will ask that you read through that information yourself, because I cannot discuss it due to some of the information via attorney-client privilege. I did want to listen to all the feedback first before I responded, just so that I wouldn't be repetitive in the things that I have prepared for you this evening. A couple of things I could address really quickly, and one of those is Commissioner Castleberry. I think that you and Commissioner Roberts both spoke about the shorthand and or lack of detail on my billing. And I will speak to that just to say that I was always aware that my bills could be FOIA. There are oftentimes things that are going on that are still under attorney-client privilege that I choose to put very little information in my billing about that, because I knew that those could be pulled by the general public. And I did not want to take a chance of allowing any information that should not be out to the public or giving kind of clues, I guess. So oftentimes we'll put just very short information or use initials or something like that, because I don't want to take that risk. And that's the reason why years ago, I didn't even have an itemized bill, because we kind of hadn't figured out how to do that yet. So that's one thing. Also, probably something else that I could address really quickly is with regard to marijuana and how much time I spend on renewals. It's part of the code that I look over every application. It's not just myself, but also the chief of police, the treasurer, building enforcement. It's in here, but I put a copy of that in your binder so that you would understand that that's the reason that I review the applications, is because it goes through a process through all these different departments. And I'm looking to make sure that the documents that are submitted are the correct legal documents in order for them to be eligible. I will say that I do those about 3 times as fast as I did a couple of years ago, and I don't spend nearly as much time reviewing them, especially when they're renewals, because many of the companies I'm already familiar with them and know the information. So it doesn't take nearly as long as what it used to, but that's the reason that I'm still involved at that level. And though I do hear the direction this evening that you all may be interested in that going another way, and that would just take an amendment to the code, but thus far, that has been my responsibility, and that's the reason that I've been involved in it. I think that most of the other things that you brought up will be addressed in this booklet. So I would begin with the packet that I left in the front because I wanted to address it first. First of all, let me tell you that anything that's hot pink and has a green sticker on it is an attorney-client privilege document, not to be released to the public, but these are your books to keep. Anything that's printed on regular white paper is a public document. This is in the front, you can stick it wherever you want in your book, but the reason that the FOIA took place is because of this packet and other situations like it. If you go back through, you'll see that since December 18th of 2020, I have been asking particular commissioner what if there are issues with my performance, and if that commissioner would sit down with me and discuss those issues with me. There are multiple requests to do so, all the way up until May 7th, I believe is the last date. Those requests were left unanswered, and eventually I asked for a personal meeting. When I asked for that personal meeting, I again asked what the issues were, and I was told that there had only ever been one issue and that there were no other issues. You'll also find in that packet that that same commissioner was emailing the city administrator in December 2020 with a list of issues to discuss about me. I understand that it may be offensive to you to be FOIA. It's offensive to me to have my job on the line and have bosses who refuse, blatantly refuse, to tell me if I have performance issues. And when I ask over and over, and they will not tell me or are not honest with me about that, I was left with no other option, because all of you in this room know that there's been continuous conversation for months about my performance and about whether or not I should remain as city attorney. And yet, all of you who have taken that position have not come to me and told me what those issues were. So I felt backed against a wall and that I needed to get that information. In addition to that, when we get to the back of this book, and I'm not going to read through the whole thing, I'm just going to highlight, but you will see that there are other things that have happened that I've brought to you out of concern because of my job. And you have asked me, do you have proof? And I've said, proof exists, but it's not in my hands. Rather than go to any other staff member in the city and ask them to provide it to me and stick them in the middle of this continued chaos that's been going on, by FOIAing that information so that I could bring it back to all of you as my supervisors and show you that what I had come to you with was actual truth, I left all those employees out of that situation. So I apologize, lad, if you were offended. I apologize, Mary Kelly, if you were offended by the FOIA request. I feel that I had a very strong basis for doing it, and I attempted many other ways to get the information. Like I said, there is proof of that there. To address some of the other items that we brought up tonight, you'll see that in the first tab, it's lights. I've just kind of given you a summary of what has been done with lights since I took it over. The next section would be a list of all the cases that have been prosecuted, issued and or prosecuted since I took over. They will give you both the date that they were issued and the date that they were resolved and the outcome of those cases. You'll also notice that we've separated to let you see kind of how that balance came out as to where tickets are being issued and where they're not being issued. You might note that there's some gaps in time where no tickets were issued at all, and that has happened multiple times since I've taken over for Blight. You can look at that timeline on your own, but you will see that there were multiple times that there just were no tickets being issued at that time. So kind of like you said earlier, lad, until that picks up, there's not a whole lot on my plate. What I'll also say about that is that I don't get white tickets on my desk. There's a process that white tickets go through, and it's all electronic, and I don't see them until they hit the docket. So it's issued by a code enforcement officer to APD. APD then issues the actual ticket. The ticket is then emailed to the court. I do get a carbon copy of that when it goes out to the court. They're kind enough to send me a copy. The court gets it and the court sets a pretrial. And once the court sets a pretrial, I get a pretrial notice in docket. There's never opportunity for a blight ticket to sit on my desk or for me to cause any impairment of that ticket making it to the docket, as I don't get it until it gets there. You'll also see that there's an email here where some of the code enforcement was discussing tickets that they were concerned about. You'll note that I'm not included in that discussion. I would say that many of these tickets are discussed in our blight meetings, and whether or not they had a resolution on each and every one of them, we talk about them sometimes. So especially since we started blight meetings as a way that the city administrator and I worked on trying to get more communication going on, he suggested the meetings. We meet every 2 weeks with code enforcement via Zoom. And we don't always send like a written update. We talk about them as we're on the meetings. Hey, what's going on with this one, that one, and the other. So the fact that something that came up out of my FOIA was that there's an email thread going on discussing blight issues that might need to be addressed or they might need updates on that I'm not included in, is cause for concern for me. And it's difficult to be held accountable for things that you're not being told. You'll also note that there are, just for your reference, some really great pictures from D'Angelo Boone, who works with the A3 Coalition and has been doing a great job of working with the city on places where there are blight issues and our residents may not have financial means or the physical ability to go out and address that. And so he had just recently sent pictures over on one of those and I included them. Sometimes we have had issues with cases being dismissed in court because the citation itself is not properly entered. And that is one case that we kind of had words about, I would say, amongst staff. I've included that ticket from that case to show you that the issue was that there was no ticket, no ordinance number, and therefore when there's no ordinance number, there are no what we would call elements to the actual violation in order for the court to hold them accountable for that. So the ticket was dismissed. However, we do have the right to reissue it, and that information was sent back out to code enforcement. There's also a few emails for your reference later on, just with regard to communication that was going on. I know there's been some question about that in the past. Trying to move quickly because I know it's late for you guys. When you go into the marijuana section, just very little information. The code that I spoke of earlier, that does explain why I've been processing them. Other than that, just kind of a highlight to show you guys which centers are now licensed, fully licensed by the state, which ones are still awaiting licensing. And then if you look towards the bottom, you know that we all, you all know that we started a code enforcement with regard to the centers that were kind of dragging their feet last year and were not getting licensed. And we did an enforcement, and several of the places that were not licensed entered into a consent agreement with us where they agreed that rather than have their permit revoked locally, they would rather pay $100 a day fine. And so this is just kind of an update for you that to date, we've collected $99,200 in civil infraction fines with regard to that enforcement. And we anticipate a little over another $5,000 in the next few weeks. The next section is kind of a spreadsheet of my hours and a copy of my contract. The only reason the copy of my contract is in there is to point out that in my contract, or for your reference, that in my contract, I'm required to work a minimum of 24 hours per week for the city and a maximum of 32. That means that if I work over 32 hours, you never get billed for that. It's just kind of tossed to the side. It also means that when I work over 32 hours, I never carry it over to another week, because even though there's a 2-week or 3-week pay period, my contract says per week. So if I work 36 or 37 hours one week, you get billed 32. If I work only 22 one week because we have a short week or something, you get billed 22. But I don't carry that over. The other thing that you'll see is that this spreadsheet shows you for the last 23 months, my average weekly hours with the city of Adrian. And it will break down for you that my average weekly hours that you've been billed, and that's overall adding every invoice since June of 2019, my average weekly hours have been 25.75 hours per week, which is just barely over the minimum that my contract requires. That means that every single month, I'm leaving billing hours on the table. And you will see that I've shown you that in 2019, there was a little over $13,000 in unbilled hours that I could have billed for, but I did not. In 2020, almost $16,000 in unbilled hours that I could have billed for, but I did not. And thus far this year, almost $8,500 in unbilled hours that I could have billed. Meaning that I could have worked those hours and or I could have charged for every single phone call, but I don't do that. As a matter of fact, when you do see on my bill where it says emails and calls, and it usually says somewhere between 2 and 4 hours, that is a combination of every call that I talk to all of you guys that week and city staff and whoever else has called me. And if any of you have ever called me with a question, you know that sometimes it can be 5 minutes and sometimes it could be an hour that you're on the phone with me. So I think it's really easy to figure out that I spend far more than 2 to 4 hours talking to everybody every week, but I keep it at a basic amount because I do try to spend extra time explaining things when there's questions. And I feel that, like you've all said tonight, that there is different learning styles and learning curves, and it would be really unfair of me if certain people don't understand one area of law, but other people get it really easy. I'm not gonna bill for 2 hours because I had to talk to one commissioner twice to explain something that doesn't make sense to me. And I see it as part of my job to help you guys understand. You see that in community relationships, I just pointed out some of the organizations or groups that have worked with over the past couple of years. We do collaborate with the A3 Coalition. Like I said, I also did a Blight Zoom presentation for the A3 Coalition. Since my last evaluation, I've done a presentation for the Lenawee County Board of Realtors on green zones, and that really helped to eliminate a lot of confusion that we used to experience with regard to marijuana applications because realtors weren't really understanding where one can be or why we can't get it rezoned or what to tell their clients that we're looking for all the hot property. So by doing that presentation, I was able to build relationships with that group. And now if they have a question, they reach out and call before they make a recommendation to someone to sell that property, thinking it's going to be marijuana eligible, and then maybe it's not eligible at all. Also, as some of you pointed out, I've been able to kind of gain a statewide reputation with regards to marijuana enforcement and efficiency. And also the big project that we are working on out on West Beecher that's known as Objective. I brought that to Greg Elliott when it first came to the city because someone else reached out to me and said, someone wants to bring marijuana to Michigan. He asked where we should go. And I told them to call to Mayors and Adrian. So as soon as I was able to connect with them, then I immediately reached out to Greg to help make that connection so that that business could come into town, and did whatever I could to help support that situation. With regard to some of the notable things I feel have happened over the past couple of years, I'm not going to call out names of different lawsuits that are going on, again, based on confidentiality, but you can see that first we went 2 years while I was here without being sued by anyone. There was a couple lawsuits still shaking out when I got here that we settled, but it was a full 2 years before I received my first complaint on a lawsuit. As to the lawsuits that are currently pending, 75% of them are pending a motion to dismiss. And we get updates on that from the outside counsel regularly, but all it says is we still don't have a hearing date. I do believe that I put that information into your reports as they come out and say, we don't have a hearing date on this yet, or they filed a new motion on it. You're getting the same information that I'm getting on that. Also, you'll see that there was an opportunity that perhaps another suit could have come up, but I feel that we dealt with that appropriately. And then you all talked about the charter amendment and the training of the OMA for the HRC. I also included just a sample of part of a recent motion that was filed by outside counsel on one of our cases, but you will see that as you just read the introduction and the statement of facts, that it's a very clear picture of how thoroughly we keep records and how thoroughly we've done our job as city staff to make sure that if and when those lawsuits come, we have all the information that they need so that they might be positioned to actually file a motion to dismiss. And if nothing else, hopefully we're positioned to prevail at the end of that. With regard to professional development, over the last couple of years, I've participated in several training opportunities, including the State Bar Government Law Section seminars, multiple MML trainings, MRA trainings, and I was also part of the MRA focus group for one of the focus groups that they had with regard to adult rec. I asked for both municipal representatives and industry representatives, and I participated in that. I was appointed to a State Bar Government Law Committee and was able to be honored as an honoree of She Leads Michigan for 2020. In addition to that, I was part of a competitive program with the MML that teaches women to be leaders in the MML. It's called the 1650 program. It was a 40-hour program that was 5 months long. I was selected to participate in it and completed that program in December of 2020. The program is designed to teach women how to be city administrators, which I am not interested in doing. However, I felt that it was a great program for me to participate in because it would teach me about every department of the city and how those departments run, giving me a better idea of how to advise them when they have legal issues. So I got to learn about budgeting, utilities, zoning, community development, economic development, legal department, and learn more about that. But we were trained in all those different areas with women from all over the state, so that I felt that that was going to make me more valuable as a municipal attorney. In addition to that, after finishing that program, I actually enrolled in school in February in my master's for public administration with a specialization in municipal law, and have been doing that online since February. The final section that I have for you is probably the toughest section, and it's going to be tough to discuss. And I'm not even going to speak as to what the specific label is there. But here is the proof that many of you have asked for. With regard to some of the issues that have come up over the past few months, there's been questions, and I have questioned actions of coworkers. I've questioned those actions. And so I've provided for you the information with regard to the question about the recent purchase agreement. I've provided for you additional information with regard to the question about the planning commission situation. And I have provided for you another example of a situation where we missed violating the charter with regard to an ordinance that was being drafted. We did not violate the charter because those changes were made in time, but it's an issue that we have faced about 3 times in the past 7 months, and it's the exact same issue. So I wanted to point that out to you. As I said, anything that's in pink is a confidential document. So the information that's in those documents obviously should not be discussed, but anything that's in white here means that it's a public document. And it also means that in my coming to you with concern about these issues, those are the documents that I was concerned could get foiled by anyone looking, by anyone questioning this, those type of things. And you will see that some of those documents are not, they don't lean to a positive outcome. So I have now provided the pieces to the puzzle for you to be able to look at that and see what all was there or what all I was aware of. However, as I said before, I was unable to obtain those without actually filing the FOIA myself, and having to pay $210 to get the documents. That's what my bill was going to be. My staff at my office spent numerous hours putting all this information together, the same as the city staff spent hours going through what I was looking for. I narrowed it down to a lot less information. I actually returned 8 4-inch binders because I didn't want to overwhelm you all with information. So I returned those and put everything in 1-inch binders once we were able to narrow it all down. But I wanted to provide you with that information to show you that I was not coming to you half-cocked or making accusations that I did not have proof of. In the final section, what you'll see is in the last 2 yellow sheets that you see in the back, Rule 4.2, communication with a person represented by counsel. That's an American Bar Association rule. That rule says that if someone is represented, if they are a client of an attorney, the other attorneys who are aware that they are represented are barred from giving them legal advice without their attorney's permission. I assert that many of you have received legal advice from another attorney who's fully aware that you're represented by an attorney. Much of the confusion that's come about may be because you're getting legal advice from more than one attorney. And there's a reason why that's barred, because it often does cause confusion. I've provided you with examples of that as well, and where those situations have happened. Finally, the last rule is a Michigan Rules of Professional Conduct citation with regard to organization as a client. And I've highlighted many areas that tell you what my responsibilities are to you as the client, to the city as the client. The city is the actual organization. And you'll see here that when an attorney or counsel goes to the spokesperson or say the CEO and they're unable to get across what needs to be gotten across with regard to legal issues, they are bound to go above that person. Most cases, that's the board. In this case, it's the city commission. It's an ethical obligation that we're all charged with. So when I have had to come to you with my concerns and complaints, it's out of my ethical duty. Because if I only tell one person and nothing comes out of that, and later on the city finds itself in an area of risk, I have not done my duty, and I've failed all of you. And not only have I failed all of you, I've failed myself, because at the end of the day, my license rides on this. And we take an exam to be able to pass the rules of ethics before we can even take the bar exam. I will say there are some attorneys who've been practicing much longer than me, usually 30 to 40 years, who don't always go by these rules because they didn't exist. So in the last 10 to 15 years, it became something that we had to do in order to sit for the bar exam, and something that has been pounded into our heads that we must follow the ethical rules, or else we could lose our license. And they have been very strict on that. And unfortunately, we have seen some local attorneys go through that. So I take it very seriously. I take it to heart, and I try my best to always keep you apprised of any type of risk that I feel might be going on, even if I might be in disagreement with coworkers. The last thing I left in there was just to remind you I'm on vacation this week, so that you wouldn't say, because it's part of my contract, I'm supposed to give you 3 to 4 weeks notice. So I made sure that I stuck that in there. With regard to what we just went through, do you guys have any questions for me? And did I answer your questions with regard to what you brought to my attention this evening?
Mine was less about the bill, just FYI. I would really like to see time, not the words.
Okay.
What about the words? It's the time.
No problem. Well, then, again, I want to apologize to those of you who were offended by my FOIA request. I hope that you have a better understanding of why I took that action. Not that that's going to make it all fine. I think we're all on the same page. I was offended that I couldn't get the information, but just trying to move past that. In addition, I really appreciate, Mayor Heath, your comments about my delivery, and I am going to work on that. And I take that very seriously coming from a fellow tourist, so I'm gonna work on that. I think that I probably have had somewhat of a defensive demeanor because knowing that behind the scenes, my integrity and my professionalism is being critiqued, and without being able to know what's going on with that, I'm sure that probably some of my emotions did play over into that, because it was very difficult to deal with and very disappointing that I would come to commissioners directly and ask the problem and not be told, or be told the opposite, and then you would go and tell one another other things. It was very difficult to deal with. So I apologize if I came off as defensive. And obviously that's something I need to work on in my career moving forward. Aside from that, I would say that the examples I've given you in this book tonight, I take very seriously. And I feel that I have an obligation with regard to those examples. And it's, they have to be dealt with from a legal standpoint. So Commissioner Watson, I want to say to you first that you've been my most challenging commissioner to work with. And I am so grateful for that. You've helped me to grow. You've given me really precise feedback. You've become a person that I can go to when I need to ask questions about maybe which direction I should take with some of the other commissioners when I'm not sure how to deal with that. And you've been a very strong supervisor to work for, and I really appreciate that. And Commissioner Skousen have driven you all crazy about me, so they know how I feel about them. They've been great supporters and helpful to me as well. Commissioner Schrager, we've worked well together many times as well. All that being said, at this point, what I would like to say to you all is that first, let me say that this letter comes to you regardless of the outcome of tonight's meeting. Second, under MRPC 1.3 and MRPC 1.6, as I've gone through the organization's spokesman or city administrator but cannot find resolution, I'm legally obligated to pass along this information to the next level of the organization, in this case, the city commission. Third, unfortunately, due to ethical concerns that have been raised, I do not believe I will be able to continue forward as the attorney for the city of Adrian. I've notified the city administrator and the commission of those concerns to no avail. As such, I'm under a legal obligation to place these concerns in writing one last time and remove myself as counsel. In order to comply with the Michigan Rules of Professional Conduct and the American Bar Association ethics rules, due to the nature of the public body, I shall not go into detail as to the specific concerns. However, they've been relayed to each of you under attorney-client privilege. It's truly a disappointment to be leaving, as I have been passionate in my commitment to my job and the city I grew up in. However, there are always other avenues by which I can benefit the community, and I will surely seek them with the same passion I brought to this position. To those of you who have supported me in my growth as the attorney and my vigor for my job, I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Otherwise, I wish the city the best in moving forward. And finally, I will say that unfortunately, if the commission continues to take no action on the issues I brought before you, I've prepared an ethical violation against the city administrator, and I will submit it to the city clerk tomorrow morning.
On that note, if there's any commissioner comments, we are in a regular meeting, so we do have our commissioner comments at the end, or we will motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.